Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What is going on, everyone? It's Jeran from Jeranism, back with yet another live video for you today. We've got a discussion with Globers. Don't insult my intelligence or our intelligence. Flat versus Globe. Live, we got myself, Jeran from Jeranism, and we've got Dave Weiss, fresh off his vacation, much deserved. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here.
Awesome to have you. And we've got, if you guys remember, it was about 3 weeks ago, I guess about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I was shown a podcast that I thought was current and covered that for a little while. The podcast name was Don't Insult My Intelligence, and it was hosted by Beau and Gerry. And so I did about I don't remember how long the show was, did a covering of that hour-and-a-half podcast. And then
4 hours.
4 hours. And then got in contact on Facebook with these guys, and they wanted to come on the show. So they're here, and I told them that we would give them the floor to start. That's what they wanted, so we're going to hear from them. Let's start first with Beau. Beau, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. And thanks for having us on. So just to give kind of like a level set of what our podcast was and everything, because I think you, well, first off, man, you did a great job, slicing and dicing us down. And I'll have to admit, it was a humbling thing to sit there and listen, It had been a long time since I listened to that podcast, and so it was kind of rough, listening to that. So anyway, just like an origin of what happened, okay? Because a couple comments you made, like right up front, were, "Damn, it sounds like shit," and these guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So sorry. Am I okay to cuss? Sorry.
Absolutely. Curse all you want.
All right. So when we first started, podcast, that was really like the first show we ever did. And it was really just meant to be like a test show, because I was in North Carolina, Gerry's in Virginia, so we were doing like a long distance thing. And this is 4 years ago. And secondly, we didn't know what the hell we were doing either. So, so we did that, and, we pretty much did exactly what you accused us of. We straw manned what we saw on the Flat Earth Society page,
right? Which
obviously doesn't represent what you and Dave stand for or believe in. So, and I learned that pretty quick.
Or most flat earthers, right?
Right. Yeah, I get it. But that's what we did at the time, and we literally did. I mean, I know myself, I don't think Gerry really looked into it much. Just because the style of what the show was going to be was, I was just going to set up the topics, and we're going to try to get, Gerry's kind of gut reaction. And, so we really didn't research at all. I just went with what we found on Google, read over a couple things, got, just have enough to have a brief conversation. And, when we were launching that podcast, what we were kind of going under the advice of, hey, you need several episodes when you're first getting out of the gate. Because somebody listens, they're going to want to listen to a couple, and then they can wait on another, to come out later on.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a few in the chamber, because if you listen to any of our other shows that are a little bit later on, you'll see it's a different format. It's not as, accusatory or whatever. And, it was much more thoroughly researched. But, we had 2 in the can, and it took us like a month to do 2. So we were like, shit, it's going to take us another month to have 4 episodes to put them all out. So we're just like, all right, we'll put out the Flat Earth one, and this other one we did on why bread was so expensive, that we just did as a, kind of a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, so we put that out, and then we didn't get a lot of, obviously we didn't get a lot of feedback or views on it. So it just stayed out there. And, really, if you call that a troll or whatever, it looks like we caught 2 big fish with it, but it just took 4 years.
You reeled me in.
So, yeah. But anyway.
Well, somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, I was listening to this podcast yesterday, and here's these guys talking about flat Earth, and I thought you might enjoy it." And then I listened to it, and I thought at the beginning I heard one of you say something about 300,000 listeners. So I immediately thought I was listening to some really big podcast, and I was confused. I'm like, "Your sound sucks. How do you have so many viewers?" But I guess
Yeah,
that's not true.
and honestly, the fact that you can even hear it was, several hours of me trying to get the sound up, because when we recorded that, Jerry thought he was talking through his microphone, but it wasn't enabled, and so it was actually he was on the one side of the room, and the audio was from the laptop mic, in built-in mic
Gotcha.
from across the room. Man, it sounded like shit. But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of give that background, and since like I said, it was a humbling experience listening to you just chop down everything we were saying, and I've done some research since then. I've listened to a bunch of your stuff, and Dave, I had run across you. I think the first time I heard you was on you were on Grimerica, which I listened to, and that's the first time I heard you. That was several years ago. So I've heard a lot of your stuff before, and so
Was that before or after you did that podcast?
It was after. Yeah, definitely after.
You heard me after, right? So
Yeah,
I got a quick question for you. Does the other guy is Jim, right? Jim?
Jerry.
Jerry. Does Jerry know that you're a flat earther yet?
Well, I don't know if I'm a flat earther yet, but it's, I've got, there's definitely things.
He's not ready to admit it.
There's definitely things you pointed out that
all I expect,
they don't really consist.
Here's all I want. By the end of today's show, you have to admit that flat Earth is a better belief than Santa Claus, because I believe you said that Santa Claus was the better belief last time. That's,
let me. Okay,
poor.
so
that was actually me, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, one last thing, and then I'll be done.
Sorry,
so,
I didn't interrupt you guys.
Yeah, put this.
No, that's okay. So right towards the end, you put it on double speed, and I don't think you got, like, at the very end, like I came back and wedged in a little correction file.
Oh, I don't
and
think
I said,
did that.
hey, I said St. Christopher, I meant St. Nicholas. So,
Okay.
But it is funny.
It was funny.
And, but that's what I was talking about. But you're right. Maybe flat Earth is more believable than Santa Claus. So
I don't know if Jerry feels the same way, but we'll find out.
Well, I just kind of want to believe in Santa Claus, but so no, and I will say, I mean, everything Beau said is absolutely correct. And I want to, thank you guys for both being here and, having us on. But also, I do want to offer an apology, because we did kind of go at it as a lark, and just kind of threw it out there how ridiculous we thought it was. Now,
We all did.
well, and I know that, and regardless of how ridiculous it might still seem, I just want to. It wasn't fair. I just, now I see that, because honestly, you guys, after you reached out, we were talking. Did you change my mind? And I told you no. But if nothing else, it did create a plethora of questions in my mind. It's
That's
like,
good.
I really, I have this, I have that. And so just kind of, and I know you were like, and you felt you had been mean to us, which kind of, for me, is a joke. I mean, that wasn't mean at all. I mean, it was a little, rubbing, but, mean to me that's not mean. So I don't fault any of that. So don't even worry about that.
Well, good.
But it's one of those things where it's like, we don't need to be mean. We just need to have discussion. It's like, right. I mean, that's kind of that's what I'm looking to do here.
Absolutely.
If nothing else, I just want to hear something new from people because we went at it. I mean, I gotta be honest. If I knew a flat earther, I had no idea, and no one certainly would admit it to me at that time. So it's nice now. I can at least have, the actual thing right in front of me, so we can see where it goes.
You guys seem honest and open-minded, and you're willing to take in new information. That's great. That's all we could ask.
Yeah.
You said what many people say. Well, you haven't flipped me yet. I still don't believe in flat Earth, and that's an interesting comment. So if you don't believe in flat Earth, that means you believe in the globe. So when we're done with this, I'm going to ask you guys for one proof of the globe, just one. And if you can give me one, I give you 3 Bitcoins. Okay.
Awesome.
But if you can't, you have to at least say the globe is a lie. You don't have to say flat Earth is real, but the globe is a lie. And then your journey has begun.
Yeah, I think the first part of the podcast that really got me, because I only listened about 20 minutes before I went live and did it. But the first part that I was like, all right, now these guys is you made this claim that any grade school child can easily go out and prove that the Earth's a globe. And, that's bothered me because
Right.
one of the biggest things to me is they don't teach this in school. They don't teach you how they came to the globe proof. And even the things that they might say in school turned out to be untrue, right? I don't know if you guys heard that water goes down the opposite direction in the other hemisphere. I grew up believing that. I thought that was one of the proofs. And then you find out, oh, no, that's just a lie. And the people at the equator do it to steal money from people. You're like, okay, well, why would they need to lie about that? And then you hear that, way back 2,000 years ago, they saw boats disappear bottom up, and that meant it was a globe. But then we go out and do our own, experiments where you can watch a boat go out, it disappears from your eyesight. You pull out your P900 or your P1000, you zoom in, and that boat comes back. So what that alone tells you, even if people say after that, oh, well, it still goes over the curve eventually. Eventually it goes over. Okay, great. But you guys said 2,000 years ago that these guys knew it was a globe because they watched the boat disappear. But I can watch the boat disappear and I can pull it back, something that they couldn't do. So why are you using that as evidence? And then you talk about Aristophanes, which is the belief that 2,300 years ago or whatever it was, that some guy went out with sticks and shadows and knew a distance 500 miles away, and the same time of day the sticks were. And again, the problem with that is it works with a local light people can do on their own kitchen table, where you take two items and put a flashlight above one of them, which will give you no shadow on that first item, but will give you a shadow on the second item. So that doesn't mean that I can then measure those shadows and predict how spherical my kitchen table is. The kitchen table is flat. So it's all these things that just keep coming up that are like, and one more thing. Then you also said later in the podcast that the reason that science doesn't want to touch this, the reason Neil deGrasse and these guys won't debate it or they won't cover it, is because they don't want to give it any legs, right? But the problem with that is that nothing gets legs when you debunk it. So if science were as sure as they say they are, and they have all these facts and evidence, then they would just come out and they would clean the floor with us, and it wouldn't give it any credence that they crushed it. What gives it credence is the fact that they won't touch it. So I think you guys have things a little bit opposite. I don't think children can prove it because they haven't been given any of the tools to do so. And I also don't think that the reason that science won't touch it is because they don't want to give it credence. That may be the truth, that they don't want to give it credence because they know they can't defeat it. But go ahead anyway.
Yeah. So on the whole, measuring the things with sticks and shadows, Aristophanes, right? So that's, so Carl Sagan kind of let me down on that one. I'd been watching that series since I was a kid. And,
Loved it. Big fan.
Yeah. After you kind of pointed that out, I went out and did a little research on that one. I saw, different aspects of that. And that one seems to be completely reasonable, that you can, using the local light, you can, put two things on the table, just like you're saying, and you're going to have different shadows, and you can extrapolate that math out and you get a curve, right? Because you're taking two partial angles, just based on the angle of the light coming in the shadows. Remember, yeah, just like you're showing there. Yeah. So that, I can see how that really doesn't prove anything. I guess it gives someone ground to have a hypothesis, but
yeah, because the difference
really,
becomes
doesn't really prove anything.
If the sun is really an infinite distance away and these rays are coming at us parallel, which is of course what we're told, but it's not something that would have been believed 2,300 years ago. Aristophanes was around when they would have believed that most likely the sun was moving around us, and therefore he would have thought of it as being a smaller item, not infinite size and infinite distance. How would it? I mean, I think they were smart enough to realize that infinite size, infinite distance. How is it going around us? So it's just kind of a story that seems like it was made up. There's people that came after him, Herodotus, other people that were also librarians in Alexandria who never mentioned him once, and that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I mean, I personally think a lot of that stuff was input after the fact, but yeah, they've just done a good job of storytelling. Science has done that with Sagan, and they leave things out and don't mention that because they make it sound like, oh, we see this curve item on the moon during the eclipse, and therefore the only thing that can leave a shadow like that is a sphere, and that's a blatant lie, because actually a sphere doesn't leave that shadow on another sphere, and even a flat edge, and I'm not saying that it's the shadow of the Earth on there, I'm just saying even a flat edge would create a curved shadow on a sphere item. So it just seems like constant lies and misdirection, confusion, and that's the biggest problem. That's why there's flat earthers, is because when you start looking into this stuff, I mean, you guys don't feel like you're spinning. You don't feel like you're flying right now 2.2 million miles per hour. So to have that belief, you've just given away the one thing that you own, which is your own beliefs. You just handed that to somebody else and said, here, Tell me what to believe. Tell me where we're at. Tell me what's going on. And they tell, oh, you're spinning and flying around in space 2.2 million miles per hour, and you're only smart if you believe that. And so we got a world full of people who believe that because they think it makes them smart, just repeating what these wizards tell you. Not impressive to me.
Well, there's a couple things there, and I don't want to just hog all the time. I want to let Gerry interject if he wants to. But there's 3 big things that I kind of wanted to talk about. But I'll just say them, and then Gerry, I'll let you jump in on which one, because I know they're probably on your list too. So the first one, like when we're talking about a little kid could prove it, the subtext behind that is gravity. And I know you guys have a whole belief on gravity or disbelief on gravity, or a position, whatever it might be. But that's where that was coming from. So behind that, things are falling to the ground because of the force from gravity. And
but can we prove that? Is that a provable thing, or do you think it's just it could be something else?
Well, yeah, it's definitely an observed effect. And yeah, gravity. You go do the research. Physicists will admit they don't know what gravity is. They don't.
Supposedly, they did the experiment with the 2 balls in a shed. What was that? Is that Sagnac? What was it called?
No,
Jeran?
that's the
no.
No.
Nicholas and Marley?
No.
I'm getting them all mixed up.
Yeah, no, my brain's not working.
Cavendish.
Cavendish.
So you got 2 balls in the shed. Do you think Mount Everest would have a little more gravity than those balls? Of course. So when you hold a plumb bob anywhere, it points directly down. A plumb bob next to Mount Everest should point a little sideways, but it doesn't. All plumb bobs in Australia, America, China, wherever, all point in the same direction. They point down. They're all parallel with each other. So that's a simple, the Cavendish experiment. There's so many flaws with it. There's so many things that were wrong with it. But a plumb bob next to Mount Everest, next to a giant cliff even, should tilt sideways, but it doesn't.
Well, I mean, are there responses to that from physicists? Because would it really pull it that way? I mean, is it that strong?
Well, if it's not, then the whole Cavendish experiment is out.
Because they'll say that the Earth is too big, the Earth is too gigantic, and therefore to expect the plumb bob to go to the right is ridiculous. But then they want to use for an experiment these 2 balls on a torsion balance. But why isn't the Earth, which is so huge, overriding that?
I'm sorry. Can you remind me about the Cavendish experiment?
So the Cavendish was in a shed, and they were basically held on a torsion balance, like 2 balls on the end of a stick, and then it kind of rotates towards the other balls that were put on the ground.
Giant lead balls, maybe, okay. I don't know.
Which can be explained through electrostatics. I mean, there's so many forces that are at play here that to just jump in and say, oh, we know static electricity does things. We know that we can walk and lint will fly on your shirt, and that you can rub your head with a balloon and your hair will stand. There's many forces going on there, and we can't just make up shit and say, oh, this is definitely gravity.
And there's lots of evidence, the only forces in this world are electricity and magnetism, that the Earth has this negative charge. The sky has a positive charge. And when you lift off the Earth, you're surrounded by this positive charge. And there's this weak force that says, hey, down is this way. Then buoyancy and density sort everything else out from there. So what's a little experiment that we could do to check that? Well, you guys have seen these little tinfoil things where they crank them up with an a negative charge, and they rise up. So are they defying gravity, or are they defying some electrostatic charge? So that's interesting. You have to admit that.
Well, they'd be defying gravity, right?
Well, no, they're defying the electrostatic charge. Anti-magnetic trains aren't. They're using magnetism and electricity. They're not defying gravity. They're defying the electric charge of the Earth. One of our globebusters, Zach, who's in the chat here, he did an experiment where he has a Van de Graaff generator that puts a negative charge into things, and he got a balloon holding a button, just a button for something that it was floating just a couple inches above the floor, and he had a wire going to it, so it's at that equilibrium. He cranked up the generator, put a stronger negative charge in it, and it got heavier. Just by changing the charge potential of that item, it got heavier, And that, again, is more evidence towards this electrostatic charge. And the last thing, and then I'll throw it back to you guys, is, whatever gravity you believe in, Newtonian gravity or Einsteinian, bending of space-time, which is, they changed it, which most people don't understand, which is good because it's just nonsense. How the hell does the sun hold on to all of the planets and ignore all the moons? How come when the moon comes around the sun, around the earth, towards the sun, it doesn't speed up or get ripped away? And when it goes away from the sun, how come it doesn't slow down? Because the sun's pulling on it. The sun can pull on fucking Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter, but it ignores all the moons, right? And the three body problem is, you can take a supercomputer and you can put two bodies in there, got a sun and a planet, and they go into orbit and they work perfectly. They can predict what it's going to do forever. You add a third body in there, it can only predict it for a tiny little bit, and then it goes into chaos mode. They can't figure out what's going to happen next. But we have planets and stars and comets and all sorts of crap just in our little solar system that we know where they're going to be for hundreds and thousands of years. We know where they've been, where they're going, when they're going to line up. All of that is nonsense in the gravitational model.
Okay. Well, okay. So, and what you're saying, I have a question with that. So, if that's the case, then how on earth are we able to pretty accurately predict when you're going to have eclipses, when you're going to have, comets?
Because they're observational, right? So, for instance, let's say that we were all put here. We don't know what the shape of the Earth is or whatever, and it's dark out a lot. We don't have electricity, so we sit around and do a lot of observing. We would be able to get patterns down, passed down through families and generations. Here's the patterns. We saw the eclipse on this date, and then you would build a predictive model that doesn't need to know where the Earth is, doesn't need to know if the Earth's flat or curved. You're just making observations, right? So the Antikythera mechanism, right? The Antikythera mechanism they found, it's like an analog computer from way back in the day they found in some shipwreck, is an analog computer that predicts eclipses. And it was on a flat Earth.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. So our sun is 400 times bigger than our moon, right? But it's 400 times farther away, so they happen to be the same size. The chances of them lining up perfectly to make an eclipse, I can't even do it. The chances of them lining up perfectly are so infinitesimally small, it's incalculable. But them happening a second time is it's literally impossible. But that's the problem. There's eclipses every year, and after 18 years, guess what? They repeat. The entire eclipse cycle repeats every 18 years. Okay. Does that sound like a crazy beehive, random stars, moons, comets, universe? Or does that sound like a intelligently designed clock?
Okay. Well, it sounds like a predictable model. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Right. Versus a crazy beehive, which is not predictable.
Well, who's saying it's a crazy beehive?
Well, that's the heliocentric model. We got planets and moons and stars, and in our galaxy, there's 100 billion stars and dozens of planets around all of them, and they're all going in different directions. If you actually do the math and think about it, it is provable that we couldn't see any stars. Absolutely provable. If I showed you a penny from 10 feet away, could you see it? Of course. If I showed it to you from 200 yards away, could you see it? Probably not. Right. Half a mile away? Absolutely not. The angular size limits of our eyes is 0.02 degrees. Okay. Anything smaller than that, we can't see it. Well, you guys live in the north. I assume you can see Polaris. Polaris is 433 light years away. It's 48 times bigger than our sun, they tell us, right? Our sun is provably invisible at 3 times the distance that they tell us it is. Okay. Well, if we made it 24 times the distance, that would be 3 light hours away. We could not see the sun. Scientifically provable. It's angular size. Forget about the brightness issue, because that's a big issue too. It would be too small. So equate that to Polaris, which would be 6 light days away, would be the equivalent. You could not see Polaris at 6 light days away, and it's 433 light years away. That's like saying, hey, I got a penny. I'm going to hold it on Mars, and you can see it with your naked eye. That's what you would have to believe, that you could see a penny on Mars with your naked eye.
but we're not really seeing that in real time, right?
You're seeing the light. You're seeing the light
Right.
travel for forever. But light, you know about the inverse square law of light? Light
Yeah.
spreads out, and so every time you double the distance with light, it's 1/4 of the brightness. Okay,
Sure.
it would fade out into nothingness. Nothingness.
And
So,
then, okay.
no.
I mean, yeah, it gets weaker. It gets weaker, but does it really go down to nothing? I mean, don't we have an instrument that can detect it?
We do, and but you can see it with your naked eye. We can see Polaris with our naked eye. When people say, it was gone a billion years ago, and we're just seeing the light, I just go, cool story, bro. Right? Because that's what it is. It's just a cool story.
But
it's just a cool story.
You're comparing a star to a penny on Mars.
I'm comparing the size, the angular size of Polaris would be as small as a penny on the moon or Mars or
right. But
wherever.
but in all fairness, a penny doesn't emit light. I mean, the star does.
Right. But the brightness of that star, it's like the brightness of the moon, right? If when you look at a full moon, you could read by it. Okay. Right. Let's just say it's 1 lumen. A full moon on a clear night is 1 lumen. It's probably more than that, right? You go halfway to the moon, it's 4 lumens. Go halfway, it's 16 lumens. Halfway, 64 lumens, right? By the time you get to 100 miles from the moon, Jeran, do you remember the number? Is it tens of thousands of lumens?
65,000 times as bright, I think. Or something
it would be brighter than we see the sun from Earth. Okay.
But then we see pictures of them on some gray, dusty rock, walking around, where if that was the case, the moon should be so bright that they are fried. Because think of how bright it is from Earth. And then, like you said, you should get 4 times as bright each halfway. So by 100, I think it's 65,000 times as bright as it is from here. It should be from on the moon. I just wanted to show this real quick. I don't know if you guys know this about the eclipses. Even, NASA's site, why would they need to say this? So they have all these eclipse dates and you could pick them. But down here, you'll notice that it says all eclipse predictions are by Fred Aspernak. The reason why is because Fred Aspernak knows about the Soros cycle, and he's the one who provides NASA. Why wouldn't they just be able to figure it out? It's a globe model. They know the globe. Go figure out the eclipses. Why would you need to go to some guy? And if you go to every one of their pages, it always tells you eclipse predictions are by this guy. And this guy, when you look him up, I think he even did a book called The Soros Cycle, which is the 12-year or 18-year cycle of eclipses. So it's not, again, this idea that, only the globe can predict eclipses. And it's very smart of them to do that, because that's what we get all the time from these globe believers, is them saying, we have such a predictive model. Our model predicts everything. It's like, well, yeah, if you guys got here first and took all the observations of what's going on and then applied them to whatever model you wanted and called that the truth, then you got parrots going around saying, well, this is such a predictive model. It predicts everything, when you don't know that that's where it came from, and you don't even need the globe to predict those things. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay. All right. So, Beau, that was number 1 of 3 you said. What else do you have?
Oh, you said something about, real quick on gravity. Gravity, what it comes from, what it means is weight, right? So gravitas is weight. So really, they've just taken weight and spun it into a force. And originally it was mass attracting mass, but that's not even the belief anymore. So now the belief is the bending of space-time. And what is space-time? Well, if you ask anybody, what they say, the fabric of space-time, that the Earth sits in it, and you've seen the pictures before, right? Where they've got the lattice and the Earth is sitting inside of it and bending it down, which doesn't make any sense. If there's no up and down in space, the Earth is not weighing anything down. That wouldn't even be a possibility. So it's the entire premise is ridiculous.
Well, it's not really down. It's into a different dimension, right?
I don't know what it is. Yeah, because every different direction is being pulled to the center, right?
When they show that tablecloth with the weight in it and the Earth going around, or how come it's not going sideways or up or left or right?
Well, I guess it could. I think it's just I think it's just not a good representation, but it's one that most people can attempt to understand.
Right, but it's nothing close, right? I mean, they always put in classrooms that big sheet, and then they put a ball in the middle, and they throw some marbles around, which go around twice and crash into the middle thing. And then they say, the difference is in space is there is no resistance, which is ridiculous on its face. So there's just nothing, and things fly forever. So it's a very magical story. And when you tell people that it's smart to think that, and then you don't let them learn about the flat Earth, or you make sure that they know that it's the dumbest belief anybody can have, then the result of that is a bunch of people who believe in what I now consider to be ridiculous and think it's smart for believing that.
Sure.
So,
Well,
because
I just go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say on the podcast, you guys came across very much as pompous, right? And I get it because I believe in the globe forever too. And the thing that shocks me is the amount of people who do that, but they're not actually giving any beliefs of their own. Like what I heard from you guys was just basically an appeal to authority nonstop, right? Like we've got scientists who do this, and we know that they know what they're doing, and that's just where you leave it. And then it's kind of shocking to me that anybody who goes out and actually tries to look into things themselves are chastised or called names. One of you guys, I don't remember which one, said you went into some chat and tried to talk to some flat earthers and you asked, what is gravity? And all you got was this kind of pompous attitude, like gravity. We haven't heard that before. And you kind of hee-hawed at that. Well, do you see that we have the same issue? We try and go and talk to anybody about the globe, and it's the same kind of response, right? They're not saying, oh, let me show you how gravity works and let me explain it to you. They say, you're a freaking idiot. We hope you don't reproduce. Why are you even alive? Go get in a gas chamber. So, I mean, that's not very good conversation.
Well, no. And like I said before, we acknowledge that. And that's why we're here. I mean, I'm curious.
Good.
So, all right, Beau, what was your second out of the three?
Well, let's see. The first one was gravity. Really the next one's kind of like the whole indoctrination thing. Because I mean, you just said we're being told, right? And I don't think we're really being told. I think it's more osmosis than say direct, indoctrination. Maybe it's indoctrination by default.
Well, it's the first thing that we're taught in school. When you go to school,
sure,
there's a globe in the front of the class, and one of the first worksheets you bring home is the orbits of the sun and the moon and the planets. So, and then they teach you about gravity. They swing a bucket of water around. It's all of the movies, all of the kids shows. There's astronauts on Disney. There's astronauts on Sesame Street. Okay.
Sure.
And then when the astronauts are up on the International Fake Station, they do interviews with kids. What do you eat? How do you sleep? No one asks how you go to the bathroom. God forbid. Okay.
Right.
Because if you actually looked at that whole situation, that debunks the whole thing. Quick question. Saw it in the chat. I had the question myself. Did we go to the moon?
See, I'm not 100% sure on that one. So,
okay.
But I don't equate that to the Earth being flat or not. I'm not happy with NASA. I mean, if you saw probably the best podcast we did one about life on Mars. And watching your videos, Dave, it's obvious there's some type of fakery going on, and I can believe
there's every type.
Well, and I can believe we faked the moon landing, because I can see even a political reason to do that.
Doesn't mean the Earth is flat. I get it.
Right. But I've seen your videos, and they're pretty convincing. So NASA definitely has there's a conspiracy at NASA for sure. It certainly seems that way. So
yeah, and they came around right at the same time as the Antarctic Treaty. I mean, you kind of have to go back and see the history of these things. The Antarctic Treaty, and then NASA right after, and it certainly seems like there's a concerted effort to stop people from going to Australia. Now you can get a trip for $30,000 and you go to the little nub that sticks out near South America, but there's really not a lot else that you get.
We have a friend who lives in Australia. What are you talking about?
Oops, sorry, I meant Antarctica. Did I say?
Okay, I was like, I can debunk.
Well, you're kind of right. You really can't go to Australia right now.
Sorry, Antarctica. My bad.
That is true. You cannot. Or
you play tennis.
Yes, I'm sorry. My bad. And St. Christopher, bring me some
gifts.
Right,
same thing. Just pointing it out.
And I don't know. I'm sure you know more about the flat Earth model now, because I did think it was funny that straw man as far as the speeding of the Earth going upwards. But isn't that weird that there's I've been doing this 6 years. I don't know one flat earther that believes that the Earth is moving at all.
No,
So it's
and I will tell you, but again,
yeah.
you have to, like we said in the beginning, and you're absolutely right. From what I've seen, I understand that is not your belief whatsoever at this point.
Right.
And you were right. Everything, which this is one of my questions, everything for the most part that we pulled initially was from the Flat Earth Society,
Okay, gotcha. Because that's the
which,
first thing that comes up.
huh?
It's the first
Well,
thing
right,
that comes up.
exactly. But so my question is, so what is that? I mean,
We think it's controlled opposition. I mean, because we don't know anybody that's involved with it. I've never talked to the.
Right. I think the Flat Earth Society actually started out as a group of flat earthers, but then the head of the Flat Earth Society, I believe he died, and then it was taken over by controlled opposition. That's my opinion. Maybe it started out as controlled opposition, but either way, the result is the same. The people that run that put out nonsense. They put out a little bit of truth, and it's the number one hit when you search for flat Earth. So, it's a gate. If you go to the flat Earth, if you're searching flat Earth, you go to the Flat Earth Society. 5 minutes there, you're done. You're like, flat Earth is the dumbest thing ever. I'm never going to look again. Right. And that's the whole plan.
Okay, I mean, I understand why you say that. I just didn't know if there was anything more to it. I mean, obviously, seemingly nobody knows.
Actually, the person who came up with that is Einstein. Einstein's the one who said that it actually would be. I mean, it's this whole basis of relativity, but it would be impossible to know whether we are speeding upwards at 9.8 meters per second squared or whether things are falling 9.8 meters per second squared. So he's the one who came up with it. So I don't know why the Flat Earth Society adopted it, other than it's ridiculous because, of course, one of our main points is that we clearly aren't moving. I'm just showing here that I just searched for flat Earth proof just to show that it's the same debunking videos every time. And this is why they have so many views. If you look at these, they all have got, here's Professor Dave with 4.4 million views. Here he is again, 3.2 million views. Where no matter what I put here, if I put, Flat Earth Horizon proof or whatever, is I'm going to get the same results. And this doesn't work that way for anywhere else. It's the same videos over and over again. You won't get a real video for quite a ways. And to have them shut things down. So it's funny because we get a lot of people saying, oh, the Flat Earth is dying because if you look at the Google trends, it was going up, and then 2019 or so, it starts taking a dip. But the reason for that is clearly because they've throttled the content. So, my channel was growing, and then it gets to a certain number and they stop recommending you to anybody. People have to know my name and go to YouTube and search my name, right? I'll never show up in a recommended feed or anything like that. So this would be a lot bigger if it was people were allowed to see some of the evidence and proofs. It's impossible to find anything now. Whereas before, that's right. P-Brain talked about perspectives. I would just be able to search Flat Earth perspective. Boom. There's all his videos. There's videos about it. And you can learn and grow and expand. Now it takes you forever to find that stuff. You have to have the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. Dave, go ahead.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I'm just zooming in on my area here. I'm up on the corner of New York and Connecticut. These are the flat earthers that are just near me. The orange ones are people that have gotten the app in the last 60 days, but it's growing. It's everywhere. If I go to the UK, you think flat Earth is dying? Well, I can't even find the where is it? United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is buried in flat Earth. It takes a second to load because there's so many dots. So again, I can see the numbers growing here. I mean, this is pretty impressive. Now, these are just the flat earthers that have the app that have put a username in for the friend finder. That's probably 20% of the people that have the app. And I don't think the majority of flat earthers even know about the app. So there's flat earthers everywhere. There's 47,600 right now that have the friend finder alone. And that's growing every day. So
yeah, I'm not arguing that there's not a lot of people that are flat earthers. No. So, right. but I get, listening to I try to listen to both sides, let's say, of news. I listen to NPR on one side, and I listen to Ben Shapiro on the other, because I try to have a balanced approach. I try to hear both sides, because I think both are, equally full of shit when you get out to the different extremes. Right. But I can understand, both sides accuse the other of suppressing their stories. But why why would YouTube and Google suppress the flat Earth piece? I mean, does that just fuel your fire on the
Well,
kind of overall like cabal or conspiracy behind the whole thing?
Because it was growing too fast. It was
Yeah.
it was becoming something they couldn't stop. Science didn't want to touch it, like you said. It was growing exponentially. It was probably the biggest search term. I think it passed Trump in 2018 for the biggest search term on Google. So they had to be told to knock it off. Now, I think YouTube at first was promoting it. And I mean that because YouTube cared about numbers. And then there's one
Yeah,
thing
they
that,
want engagement.
right. And there's one thing that flat earth and conspiracies have that nothing else has, which is engagement, meaning if I do a 3-hour show, there's a lot of people that'll watch that entire 3-hour show. There's not a lot of things on YouTube where you get that kind of attention, right? Most people nowadays are in this TikTok world where it's 45 seconds, move to the next thing, move to the next thing. And when people are having real discussions about real issues and science and things like the scientism, then I think they just couldn't have that anymore. Somebody told them to knock it off.
And I don't know if you guys remember several years ago when you search something on YouTube, it tells you how many hits. You know, if you put in Donald Trump, it says it was 4,700,000, you know, whatever. As soon as Flat Earth beat Donald Trump, they took down the scoreboard.
Right.
Okay. Now, was that because of Flat Earth? I think so, but you know,
do you have the Bob's Wind slide, Dave? So there's also there was this map called earth.nullschool.net or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But it was this live weather pattern data. You could get wind data. You could get all these things from it. And you were able to switch it between different models. And one of the models was the AE model, which is kind of the layout of what most flat earthers think that the Earth probably looks like. And you would get these perfect circular patterns. You would be able to see why the trade winds went the way they did. Everything made sense on this map. And after we started talking about it and people started promoting it and showing it, the guy goes in and he changes it to a southern centered map. And so I wrote to him on Facebook and said, why did you change it? And he said, because too many people were getting this idea that there was something important about the North, and I didn't want them to feel that way. And I was like, okay, but there's nothing important about the South, so why did you put the South in the middle? And he said, well, it's just I did that. A couple days later, somebody says, hey, that site's not working, and I go check it, and sure enough, the AE map's completely gone. So I wrote to him again and said, what happened? Did somebody tell you to take that down? And he just wouldn't respond anymore. So it's funny that when things are completely destroying the globe, because the globe makes no sense that we're spinning 1,000 miles per hour and that there's winds outrunning the spinning Earth. How could you have a globe spinning 1,000 miles per hour, but we have winds going 250 to 300 miles per hour in that direction, outrunning the Earth? That's why we have trade winds where they can get, from going east a lot faster.
The Earth is spinning this way, and the winds are outrunning the spin of the Earth.
Right. It's just ridiculous.
Okay?
So when you see
they would have
maps,
to be spinning faster than the Earth just to keep up with it because they're higher, making a bigger circle, but they outrun it.
It's the number one proof for me, at least by far, that there's no possible chance that, let's say we are spinning, and I have to believe this idea that, well, we've always been spinning, and so we don't feel it. And even though we're flying 2.2 miles per hour, we just don't feel it. It's the way it is, and it's just because it's like an airplane, you're in it, even though that doesn't make any sense. It's not a good comparison. Let's say we believe that. The idea that the atmosphere is moving lockstep with a 1,000 mile per hour spin, that as right now I'm going 1,000 miles per hour and just the entire atmosphere is moving with me. And as the speed changes, because it's spinning faster at the equator than as you move to the top, Alaska might be 400 miles per hour, that as you're moving that distance and as planes are flying, all this atmosphere is perfectly moving. And you can still see clouds move and you can still have wind but yet we're supposed to believe that all this atmosphere is just traveling with us.
But
why
a summer breeze can blow the wind left and right and up and down, but it's all Velcro to the Earth, spinning with the Earth, and outrunning the Earth.
Airplanes and things like that. Airplanes like that, they are the opposite of what they should be. A flight from New York to California takes longer than California to New York, but it should be the other way around. If you're leaving New York and the Earth is spinning towards you, then you would get to California faster as California came to you, and it's the other way around. Why? Well, because of trade winds, but it's kind of
you're saying that winds impact air travel like that?
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, like the fastest plane ever is like they say like 1,000 miles. Not talking about the Concorde, but regular jet flyers. They can go about 1,000 miles per hour because they get a good gust of wind behind them. I think they would say the fastest would be like 850, but I think it can go faster. So yeah, because that's how planes get. In fact, have you ever gotten on into your plane and you're like 15, 20 minutes late taking off, but you always get there on time. It's because the plane knows how to find the winds that will get the plane where it's supposed to be on time. I mean, I'm not saying it's always. If you're an hour late, you might not be able to get there on time, but that's how planes always kind of end up on time. Think about it. If you're 20 minutes late, then everybody the rest of the day should be 20, 40 minutes, 60 minutes late, an hour, 2 hours late. No, but they correct themselves.
So where do those winds come from on the flat model? Where do those winds come from?
High and low pressure.
Because they're happening, right?
Well,
correct.
Is it high and low pressure, Jeran? Or we believe that we live on a plane inside a toroidal field, and that toroidal field, it spins around us, and I think that the winds follow that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Coriolis,
yeah,
if you want to call it that.
Right.
And the other, I was just looking at behind Dave where he's got this, is one of the things that I have a hard problem with is that when we try and make fun of the globe or disprove the globe, at least we use their real beliefs, right? So when we show this and we laugh at that, that's because that's really what they say is happening. And what they'll do is they'll do just constant, straw man about putting a disk in space next to all the planets, the sun, Mercury, and Venus, and then you've got a disk, and then you've got Mars, and then they laugh hysterically, but nobody believes that. So, it's a sign to me of just weakness. Is if you're going to disprove what I believe, then come at what I believe, not what you believe. And they'll always say things like, "Well, if the sun was close, we'd all be burnt to a crisp." It's like, well, yeah, if the sun is 867,000 miles wide, yeah, you're right. But I don't believe that at all. Look up in the sky. The sun is not 867,000 miles wide. Here's one other thing, and then you can go. The trillions of miles that we were talking about earlier, I mean, we can't even fathom trillions. Trillions is like a number that's hard for us to even grasp. Do you know how long a trillion seconds would be? What would you think?
Well, I already know the answer.
Okay.
So. He's been listening to my shows.
31,000 years.
There you go. Wow,
31,000 years. Isn't that incredible?
Right.
I mean,
it's a lot.
30, yeah.
And the closest star is 25 trillion miles away. And
25 trillion.
And if you just do, I mean, that's a number where you first don't get it. But let's say we're traveling 100,000 miles per hour, which is really, really freaking fast, right? And times that by 60, so we get, 100,000, what did I say, miles per hour. Think of how long that would take. I think it ends up being, to get to the closest star at that speed would take 25,000 years. So wouldn't you agree that then, once we know that, if that's the true belief that why would we care? Why would you continue to pump money into science studying something so absurd as 25,000 years away for us to travel there, even 100,000 miles per hour?
Well, I think if your motivation is to go there in a reasonable amount of time, then sure, why would we invest in that? Because it's not.
So what is their goal? What are they doing?
Right.
What are they doing by looking at these stars and?
What are they doing on the space station? What have they done? What have they done for humanity?
21 years in orbit, and $150 billion, and they haven't. I don't know if they have done.
Well,
something.
what are they doing? They're controlling the narrative, right?
Well,
absolutely.
That's the other thing. You talk about them spending this money, but isn't it true that part of your belief is they're not really spending this money, right?
No, correct. I think they spend. Well, I think they spend the money. I think it goes back into the economy. I think they're a jobs program. A research and development jobs program that keeps people kind of spinning their wheels. Yeah.
Busy.
Huh?
Okay.
There's so many jobs that have no purpose, that it just waste time and energy.
And we don't think that those guys are, a lot of them are lying. We think a lot of them are fooled. People who are sitting at consoles.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, gotcha.
So guys, here's the Earth, and we got the equator right in the middle here, and you got the northern hemisphere on the top and the southern on the bottom. If you were going between any two locations in the north, would you ever cross the equator?
No.
Right. And no northern to northern location flights cross the equator. However, in the south, if you're going from a south location to another south location, they most often cross the equator. Why would they do that? If the Earth is a globe, it would be the same in the north and south. So if we look here, this is a flight to what does it say? I can't see it. It's hidden.
Let me make you a little.
Johannesburg to Amsterdam.
Yeah. It goes on the globe. It goes all the way. Excuse me, all the way up, all the way down. It crosses the equator twice. Why doesn't it just cut across the bottom? Okay. Here's another
It's
one.
the flight pattern, right?
Well, it's the flight pattern. They go from here, they go all the way up to Los Angeles and then cut over. Not Los Angeles, that's Seattle. It's really tiny on my
Los
screen.
Angeles, yeah.
Los Angeles. All right. And if you look at it, this path is about the same distance. Why does it do that? Well, because this is what it looks like on a flat Earth map. Right. And then you say, well, they do it because they got to pick up passengers. Again, I say cool story.
Well, and of course they have an excuse for everything. That's what they think we're going to find something that they're just going to be like, oh, you got us. We throw in the towel. Now it's done. No, of course, every one of these things that we bring up, they've got some answer for, even though it's garbage.
Hold on, real quick. To be fair, though, couldn't the same thing be said for you guys? You have an answer for everything, right?
Well, yeah, but the difference is that when somebody's trying to go after the current held belief, in my book, that person should be allowed a little bit more leeway than the person who's standing there proclaiming the truth, right? And then, like I said earlier, they're lying about water going down the opposite direction. They're lying about, you name it. It's everything that they say seems like it's coming from a place of, we can't be questioned about these things. Where's the camera of the Earth spinning? How can there be no 24-hour view of the Earth? And again, so I don't know if you could necessarily say we're saying the same thing, and we don't have an answer for everything.
Right. Well,
we'll admit that. I mean, some people ask me, what are comets? What are comets? How do they come from? What about the predictable ones? Yeah, I've got some ideas, but I don't know. A lot of it might end up being that they're doing that to trick us. I don't know.
So the excuse for the flights is, well, they have their airlines, they have to make money. They go pick up other passengers, even though there's plenty of people that want to go from one location to the other to fill a plane. However, there's been over 16 documented emergency landings. This one from Chicago to Doha stopped in Moscow, which is 1,000 miles or more out of the way. But if you look at it on a flat Earth map, the stop is right in line between the destination and the origin, right? This happens again and again and again. Let me see this one.
And I was going to say.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeran.
No, go back to that one slide right before. Or
sure.
If you have, just because there's been a few things that have come up that I think would be, pretty detrimental to flat Earth if it were to be true. For instance, the undersea cables between Australia and South America, because on this flat Earth model, that distance between, as you see right there, Australia to South America is much, much, much more than it would be on a globe, right? So when you go down there and you say, well, I can understand how planes could make that trip because planes can get up in the jet stream. We've seen jet streams 250 miles per hour in that direction. That makes sense. But what can't really happen is a cruise ship or a container ship somehow picking up enough speed to make that trip seem feasible, right? So you go down there and you look, and there's no such thing. There is no container ship. There is no cruise ship that goes Australia to South America. And when you ask them, well, there's the undersea cables. There's no undersea cables that run from Australia to
they go all the way up in the north and then they come all the way back down.
And actually, see Australia on the right there, going from Australia to South America. So going to the right, if you were to continue going to the right, there's none there either. Now, in my opinion, that's because it's much longer than we're told. So I don't think you could contract a company, say, hey, go lay 6,000 miles worth of fiber optics in the ocean, and then they get out there and they get to the end of it and they're not where they're supposed to be. Then they're going to have questions. Why do we need an extra 2,000 miles worth of cable? What happened? So they don't run them that way. They go up along the Philippines and all around Alaska and back down the United States and down Mexico. There's just a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. And then you ask them about the cruise and they say, well, nobody wants to go on a cruise it's not safe to be out there in the Southern Ocean all alone. They've always got some excuse. So yeah, is that true? Okay, well, they certainly don't mind cruising other places forever out in the middle of nowhere. I'm assuming there'd be a lot of people who would like to take a cruise. My dad goes on cruises just for the damn casino. I don't even think he cares where he's going. His wife likes to go places, but he just likes to gamble. So
I can agree with that.
Yeah, so I mean, I could see people who would go from Australia to South America, but the problem is that's a lot longer of a distance than they tell us. And then we have the you want to bring up the ZQ Pilot. That's one for me in 2015 when I first got into this that I paid attention to because there was this guy who was going to break the world record for the longest north-south circumnavigation flight. And that was the first thing when I saw the flat Earth map. First thing that I realized, well, first because I told my wife she was an idiot for even thinking the Earth could be flat, and said, well, there's no way planes can go around it. That's ridiculous. Why would you even think that? Then I see this map and I'm like, oh shit, on that map, planes could go around it. But then I say, oh, but they can't go north-south. So I start looking and I realize that billions of people have circumnavigated the Earth east-west. I've gone a majority of the way going east. My wife's gone going west. Many of us have done that, but nobody's traveled north-south. So I start looking into who's gone north-south, and the guy they keep bringing up is the greatest explorer ever, Sir Ranulph Fiennes, who's a Freemason, who's the Queen's cousin, who's a third baronet of some country, and he's even been in court and admitted to faking accidents, faking events on his expeditions. So he got some girl hurt, and she went and reported that he wanted her to fake this accident. Anyway, and he had to admit that in court. So when I see that, and he's like the only one who's done it, I'm looking for somebody to do it. Well, then we get this ZQ pilot. He's going to be the first one to do it ever, or the fastest one to do it ever. And he left North Carolina. I'll bring that up here. He
got it right there.
Oh, there you go. He left North Carolina and went down to like Buenos Aires, and then Buenos Aires to Brazil. And then from Brazil, he was supposed to go across the South Pole to New Zealand. But he went to the 90-degree marker, turned around, and went back to Brazil. And everybody's asking what happened. He said, oh, the weather got too treacherous, so I just came back. He went from Brazil, then to New Zealand to Alaska, around the North Pole into North Carolina, and they gave him the record. So
The
that
record for circumnavigation.
Yeah, he's got the fastest circumnavigation, but he didn't circumnavigate.
And in reality, this is all he did. He just followed this little loop right here.
And
So they acknowledge that as a record, but when you say they, like who
The
is
Guinness
they?
Book, Guinness Book,
The
gave him
international,
the
yeah.
record for southern circumnavigation. When in
Okay.
reality, he just went here and he turned around and came back.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem like
He would have to
circumnavigation.
go here and magically show up over here, but he didn't do that
Right. Yeah.
because the Earth is flat.
And then you find all these people who travel to the South Pole, and they all have the same story. They basically get dropped off on some edge. They can't use a GPS because it doesn't work down there. They basically, or a compass. They basically go to that spot that they call the South Pole, and then they turn around and go back. And it never made sense to me. I'm like, if I was that kind of explorer and I went to the South Pole, why wouldn't I just cross Antarctica? Why wouldn't I just go the whole way? Well, that girl that skied there, she supposedly skied to this 90-degree marker and came back. I wrote her an email on her blog and said, hey, can you tell me why you didn't just go across? I'm just wondering, why wouldn't you go all the way across? And she said, oh, they tried to charge me $75,000 extra to pick me up on the other side. And I mean, that just alone is ridiculous on its face. What do you mean? How would it cost $75,000 to pick you up on the other side? So it even seems like they've got all these things worked out. I was the one who discovered that there's like 100 cruises, supposedly cruise lines. And I did some deep diving into it and realized they're all owned by the same company. There's 100 cruise lines that all do these so-called Antarctic trips, but they're all owned by the same company. And the CEO is the former head of the NOAA, who was put there by Obama. So it's just weird that everywhere we look, you would think there'd be things that would blast out and be like, oh man, maybe we're wrong about this. But we're not. All we find is everything seems to point to this. Pretty interesting.
Okay.
But there's definitely something up. I mean, even if the Earth's a globe, there's definitely something up with Antarctica.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
There's some weird stuff going on in Antarctica.
yeah. I mean, I have a hard time with even if the Earth's a globe, but yes. I mean, to me, it just doesn't make sense anymore that a globe could exist, a giant ball. I mean, they've gone 8 miles deep. That's as deep as they've ever gone. And they will tell you everything that's underneath us and what the mantel's made of and what's going on in there. And even when we knew only what 4 miles deep was, they had all these predictions of what that 4 miles, the next 4 miles would be, and everything was wrong. So they just lie to people. It's like they give themselves this air of genius, and it's not genius. It's,
And Google Earth mapped the world by flying airplanes and balloons, mostly airplanes, and taking pictures of everything and mapping it together. Then they stitched it around a ball. And the problem is the outer areas, when they come together, how are they going to make that all mix? And if you look at any image of Antarctica from space, they're all cartoons. It's one of the only places other than the North Pole where it's all cartoons. There are no pictures of the inner part of Antarctica. Yes, the shoreline, because that's photographable. You can see some stuff going on there, but all of the rest is incorrect. And if you look on Google Earth and actually zoom in, you'll see that it's all sliced together.
Yeah, as you start to zoom in.
Yeah.
So can we talk about that? So first off, the map that you're using, there are folks out there that say, so the map that you had there for the base of your clock, or the map that you've shown a couple times, that's where the North Pole's in the middle, and it's Antarctica all the way around the edges.
Right.
I don't know if it's that one. Anyway,
that's the
one
A
that you
map
showed
that
there,
that most people use, and that a lot of people say is debunkable.
well, what's your response to, because one of the things I ran into doing some research for this conversation is that's a globe map flattened out.
Right.
And there's distortions on there. The continents aren't the right size, and the scale doesn't work.
How do you know the continents aren't the right size?
So just make sure. Yeah.
No, that's the information that I'm repeating, that information that I ran across. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. No, our problem with that is simply, let's say that the Earth was flat and you came and mapped it, and then you put it onto a globe. And then if anybody ever realized that and said, you could just say, no, that's just the globe's flattened out. When the globe could be the flattened part spherical, right?
Sure.
So, we don't know that. And it seems like if you look at it, every single ancient civilization, whether it was the Egyptians, whether it was the Mesopotamians, whether it was the Hebrews, they all believed in a flat Earth.
And how do you know they didn't take the flat Earth map and just wrap it around a globe?
That's what I mean.
Not that long ago, Google Earth was a flat program, and then they wrapped it around a sphere.
Now, the only thing that would happen if you did that is you would lose areas of the ocean, which I've showed before, that there would have to be big swatches of the ocean that aren't on GPS, which I do believe even MH370 might have proved that MH370 disappeared.
I'm not laughing at the point. I'm laughing at the fact that you have a video that shows exactly that.
It's funny.
Dave's ready, man. He's loaded that thing. Dave, how awesome was me teaching you OBS, huh?
That's awesome, Jeran. Nice work.
No, he does a good job.
It's a lot easier when Jeran's talking, so I can actually think and pull up stuff, because I got to talk and pull it up.
And it's great. I like him here too, because I like to be able to pull up this, Dave. I don't want to have to go searching for it.
Of course, sure. All right. Here's my question, and this is for both of you, and I'm sure it might be different. But what was the catalyst, or what was the trigger to set you off in changing your belief to this?
So for me, it was realizing that I was lied to about everything.
I know, but what got you to that point is what I want to know.
I guess
wake up one day and
religion. For me, it was religion. It was kind of realizing that I grew up Catholic, and I was kind of deeply religious until like 15 or so, and just kind of realizing that. So then I did away with religion, but I still believed. And then I got married to my wife, and then when we started talking about having a child and how would we raise it, her family is a Bible believing Christian, and my family is Catholic, and we got into this kind of Bible debate where I was saying, no, I think that the Bible was written by man. That's why the Catholics say don't put too much into it. And she was saying, no, the Bible's perfect and it's written by God. So we kind of said, I remember the day we prayed to God, please give us a year to search for you, and we think we'll find the real you. And we did that, and right away I just noticed that there was so many problems in the Bible, and I started to not trust it as God's word anymore. Sure. And so with that, I became an atheist. And in becoming an atheist, I wanted to debate Christians, and I just knew for myself, as soon as I saw religion was wrong, my immediate thought was science is right. Everything science says is true. We know the age of the earth. We know that evolution is true. Right. And so as I went looking at these things and started to learn about it, I was really finding that it was itself like a religion, and that nobody really knew. You couldn't really find the evidence that I was looking for. And when I would go into these debates against Christians, I would say something to, like, even an atheist might show up and say, we know the age of the earth isn't 6,000 years because of carbon dating. And I would say, no, carbon dating only goes back 10 to 20,000 years. It's actually, and when I would start trying to argue with these guys, they would then jump on me as if I was a Christian. They would say, oh, you're an idiot. And I'm like, no, I don't even believe that. I would believe what you do, but you're just saying it wrong. And I just kind of noticed that it was a religion. And so from there, I told my wife, like, look, I think both sides are a lie. I think that neither one has people who really know what they're talking about. It's just these men at the top that are telling them what to believe. And so I said, let's just build our belief system from the ground up. Let's not believe things because people told us. Let's try and determine it for ourselves. And like the next day, she's looking out of our second story window at our house, and she's looking. We had this weird view too. I can still remember. We don't live there anymore. but we could see, we were at like the T of a block, so we could see down the street. And she's looking down, we could see far off in the distance. She said, "Do you think the earth could be flat?" I'm like, "What? No, absolutely not." And I kind of got upset at her, and she's like, "Oh, I thought we were starting all over." And I'm like, "Yeah, but some things are fundamentally true. Some things, we're not going that far back. We're just going." And so it was like the next month that I was looking at, well, I don't know if you've ever seen the maps. When they show the map, the equator's like 3/4 of the way down. There's one thing I saw that I was like, wait, I don't understand why they do this. And then I learned that the white countries of the United States and Canada and Russia and Europe made themselves bigger than they really are in reality. So I'm like, you're telling me the continents aren't the size that we were told? And and then you realize the Mercator map has everything all screwed up, right? They show Greenland as being huge, but it's actually like 14 times less size than it's right. So when I saw all that, then I started thinking to myself, well, I need to find out whether or not we went to the moon, because if we didn't go to the moon, then you can tell lies for a long time, and then who knows what's true. And in looking at that, I found the AE map. And when I found the AE map, which was the one that Dave was showing earlier, and I realized planes could go around it, and then I just said, okay, I want to debunk this. I didn't even want to tell my wife that I found that, because I didn't want to have to kind of save face. So I found, I kind of looked into the circumnavigation thing, and then I found about Captain Cook, and Captain Cook went 60,000 miles. And in his writing says, as far as we could go, as far as we could do, we couldn't get to the southern continent because all we kept running into was ice to the left and to the right, to the east and to the west. But 60,000 miles, which is about what so it just seemed like things started to line up. And then I said, my wife wanted me to make videos. This was back 2014 around Thanksgiving. And I said, I don't know how to make videos. I'm not going to make videos about it. I said, people will make fun of me and this and that. And I said, I searched on YouTube. There was really nothing much. And so I just kind of put it on the back burner. But we were kind of would consider ourselves flat earthers by that Thanksgiving, 2014. And then it just became, by 2015 in February, I searched again. And that's when I saw Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues. I don't know if you guys have seen those. It was a cat. I mean, I remember calling him out, come here, look at all these videos. And we watched the whole thing. I think he had like 6 that came out at the beginning or something, or 4. And we watched all those. And that was when I said, okay, I can do this. I can make videos, because I was looking at the way Mark did it. He didn't show his face. At the time, I didn't want to show my face. I didn't want to be on camera. And I said, but he's just showing images and talking. I can do that. So I started doing that. And it kind of went from there. And the more that I researched and the more that I saw, the more that it lined up. For instance, one of the things was there's this planetarium software that you could fast forward how many years you wanted, or rewind how many years you wanted, and it would show you the stars. Well, I fast forward like 5,000 years, and the North Star is still in the same spot. I rewound 5,000 years, the North Star is still in the same spot. So I wrote to the guy and I said, hey, they say the North Star moves, and in 4,000 years it's going to be another star, and 4,000 years ago it was another star. So I'm like, why doesn't the planetarium software do that? He said, oh, I don't have the right code for that, this and that. And so I'm like, well, okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because if it's changing over time, then you're going to be wrong in 100 years or 200 years, 300 years.
It's 16,000 years, isn't it? Not 4,000.
16,000 years.
Precession.
Right, but it would be a new star in 4,000, right?
Oh,
you're saying it from that point in time.
Correct.
Okay.
Like they say that right now the shafts of the Great Pyramid is pointed at Polaris, directly at Polaris. But they say when it was built, it was pointed directly at Thuban or something.
Right.
And we just happened to miss the 4,000 years in between where there was no North Star.
Okay.
But that told me that, and then you look at, like, what is it, the Georgia Guidestones? Georgia Guidestones have a hole drilled in the rock that points directly at Polaris. It's meant to be there for a long time. So I just kind of noticed that there was a lot of things. Anyway, a couple days later, somebody wrote me and said, hey, that video you made about that planetarium, how come I can't get it to go to 5,000 years? I'm like, just hit the button until it goes. Like, no, it doesn't work anymore. It stops at 100. So I go look, and sure enough, the guy changed the entire code of the site so that you could only go 100 years ahead or 100 years back. And so little things like that just told me we've got an issue, because if people are given a code for a planetarium software and the actual stars do move like they tell us, then why wouldn't it be coded that way? And in my mind, the reason why is because if you did code it to move in 4,000 years, then in 50 years, it will have moved enough that people would say it's now off. So you can't have that code. You have to have a different code. And that's basically it for my story. And then from there, it just became, sadly, that's the first step of us trying to build our own belief system. And I totally came back to the creator. I totally saw finally that there's a concerted effort by science to erase any connection of spirituality, to erase any connectedness, to erase any kind of actual true power that humanity has. And from there, we read like the Iron Republic that told about civilizations that have gone beyond the ice wall and have been out there. And there's a book from 1900 that talks about a guy going there and them saying, yeah, we live about the same distance as the United States, but on the other side of the wall. And that we didn't want to be there anymore. Those guys are all about, trapping people and slavery and injustice, and we don't want to be any part of that. So we're over here. And he describes maglev trains, phones, flying crafts in 1900. He's describing things that we have today. So whether that's real or not, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities, and I don't want to be locked in. Yeah.
No, and I appreciate you telling me. I mean, I'm curious. It's like, so thank you for that. And so, Dave, what happened? What's your deal?
I was doing a conspiracy podcast looking into all of the deceptions, and people started saying, hey, have you looked into flat earth? And I just banned them for being stupid. And then I went into it to disprove it. I went into it saying, I'm just going to put an end to this and prove the globe. And it took me about 2 weeks. And again, I started with Mark Sargent's clues, 200 proofs. And then YouTube kindly just kept sending me more and more stuff. I'm like, wow. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. And then I was like, holy crap, everything's a lie. And then things started opening up from there. So people say, why this lie? You think all these governments are working with each other? Yeah, they are. It's all about division. In the Cold War, how many skirmishes were there? How many people died? 0, because it's not a real war. It's all fake, right? All of this stuff is all just a show to divide us, to separate us, to hide the creator, to depower us, to make us live in fear, to make us give up our God-given rights, which they can't take from us unless we willingly give them up. So this entire thing is about control. And I blame what's going on in the world. The way they're getting away with all this tyranny is because people are lost in space, spinning out of control, don't know who they are, where they are, what they are. They don't know where their feet are. They think their feet are spinning through space. They think that we're flying through an infinite space vacuum, and a star could supernova, and an asteroid could hit us, and we're running out of fuel and food and land and water. All of that's nonsense.
They're teaching the world to trust the science right now. And
you can take a seed your grandparents put in a jar 100 years ago, stick it in the ground, water will fall from the sky, and food will grow out of the ground. You can take every family in the United States and give them a half an acre in Texas, okay? And everything would be fine. Overpopulation is a lie. Everything is a lie. And it's all about control. And what they don't want us doing is getting our numbers up big enough to where they don't want us knowing that our thoughts create our reality. They don't want us knowing that we don't have to listen to them. They don't want us knowing that they can't do these things to us unless we agree. But once, and that's why I think that they're seriously trying to limit the population, limit our ability to think, right? With what's going on right now, I blame it on the globe lie. That's how they control us. They have us believing that we're insignificant specks in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but think of it. They've gotten people to go with this line, trust the science, which is hilarious. I mean, if science were a person, it would be deeply offended in the fact that that's the last thing you should do. The point of science is to distrust it and to always try and get better and to get closer and to get more towards the truth and to test and to experiment, not trust it. Trusting the science is the most closed-minded, idiotic thing that you could do, because somebody could pose anything and call it science.
Well, okay. I think your verbiage is, I don't know if necessarily distrust science, but I think always, for me, I'd say this is somebody's hypothesis.
Okay.
And it,
Can I throw something in there real quick?
Sure.
We trust science. We all want science.
You have to.
And the definition of science is you have to question it. And if it's true, your questions will be answered. Can you name any science that says we live on a ball?
Other than what you...
No, anything. Name anything scientific that says we live on a ball. Now, I could show you something scientific that says we don't live on a ball. For example, a ball is required to have a rate of curvature depending on its size. And according to the ball that they tell us we're on, a 6-foot-tall person standing at the edge of calm water should see a physical horizon at just 3 miles away where the drop is 6 feet. Okay. But we can send a laser beam, a radar I mean, a microwave, we can look, we can zoom in, we can see things dozens of miles beyond that. We can see things that should be hidden by a mile of curvature. You know, Navy ships can put a laser beam on another ship 100 miles away. There should be 6,600 feet of water in between them. A submarine can send sonar out, which doesn't go over hills, and see another submarine over 100 miles away. There should be a mountain over a mile high between them. But somehow they can do that. That's science right there that says, well, if we're on a ball, it's 1,000 times bigger than they're telling us. The other thing is, we're talking about earlier, the angular size of these stars. We could not see stars at a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the distance they tell us. That's scientifically provable. Okay. So those are things that tell us that the globe is a lie. Can you give me one piece of science that says we live on a globe? And it's probably worth 3 Bitcoins if you can.
Yeah, it's damaging because nature abhors a vacuum is something you've heard a million times, right? Yet they tell us that we are this insignificant little speck in a world of vacuum. The vacuum is everywhere. It's everything that there is vacuum, and there's just little tiny Earth and some other planets and suns.
Right.
So nature doesn't abhor a vacuum.
Yeah, and I could take a straw and suck water up and away and air up and away from gravity from down low where the gravity is the strongest. But the vacuum of space can't suck the air off of the Earth, which is a vacuum that we can't even create here on Earth.
Hold on. Isn't the vacuum just like devoid of stuff? It's not like a vacuum.
Right.
Cleaner.
So
well,
let me ask
it's
a question.
low pressure, right?
Let's say you're in a 2-story, there's a room above you, and that room, we sucked all the air out of the room. It's a complete and total vacuum. Mm-hmm. And there's a valve, a hose going down into your room, and you opened up that hose. What's going to happen? The air is going to equalize. It's going to go up and away from gravity. It's going to equalize, right? You cannot show any example of low pressure next to high pressure, sideways, below it, above it, where it won't equalize as soon as you take that barrier out, okay? Pressure equalizes, period. Right?
But doesn't that atmosphere on kind of like a graduated scale just become less and less?
It becomes less and less
away from the surface of the Earth that you get.
Yeah, and that's not.
And then that low pressure and high pressure
air. So air pressure,
away, right?
Air pressure needs a container. Okay, it has to be in a container. And we've done experiments where we have a tank of gas and it's more dense at the bottom, less dense at the top, but it needs a container. You cut off the top of that, or a hole in the side or the bottom. All of it's gone. You can't have pressure without a container.
And as far as
so we're in a container, and yes, the air is thinner at the top of the container
because it has weight, and it's gonna even out like that or balance out like that.
Okay.
Somebody says, I hear science is a method, not a conclusion. I totally agree, but they've just taught it wrong. And then we do believe in the scientific method. I mean, if you're talking about something that you're coming up with, and then you go out and you do a test and you can kind of get closer to the truth. But people take what is not science and call it science. I've got a video of Michio Kaku saying that nobody in his field, which is theoretical physics, uses the so-called scientific method. Well, if you don't use the so-called scientific method, by definition, you are pseudoscience. And yet they turn that at things like flat Earth as pseudoscience, even though we're out there actually doing measurements and observations. And when these guys sit around and discuss string theory, and we're actually part of 11 dimensions, and there's strings everywhere, and quantum, and this and that, those are considered science. It's completely backwards, and people agree to that.
Well, let me ask a question. What state are you in? What state are you in, Beau?
North Carolina.
So you're in North Carolina. I'm in Connecticut. Can you see me right now? If you look out the window, I'm north of you.
No.
Okay, so a globe earther might say, well, that's because of the curvature of the Earth. Do you think there's another reason you can't see me?
Well, I mean, part of it has to do with how far you can actually see.
Absolutely, you can't see that far.
Right.
One, it's dark right now. You can't see me. Two, I'd be too small. I mean, there's hills and trees and stuff in between us, so there's lots of different reasons. All right. But globe earthers will go, oh, you can't see that. That's because of curvature. Earth isn't flat. You're a retard. Okay, that's not science. We'll do something and go, you know what? You can circumnavigate on the flat Earth east to west and west to east. That doesn't prove the Earth is flat or a globe because it's the same on both, right? You can circumnavigate north to south and south to north on a globe, but you can't on a flat Earth. Now that's interesting. No one's ever done south to north circumnavigation. Does that prove anything? Hasn't been done. It lays evidence
but there's
that something's wrong.
There's little rules, like one of the rules of traveling in the South is that you're not allowed to take your boat with fuel on board below 60 degrees. And that's just hilarious because if you were going to try and prove what we think is true, one of the ways you could do it was to get in a boat and travel the outer edge and see, is it really 11,000 miles around Antarctica or is it 60,000 miles around Antarctica? But they don't
Right.
let you take fuel down there.
They tell us Antarctica is about 13,000 miles around. So here's a great way to put the discussion to end. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson says, we don't have time to talk to flat earthers. Obama said it in his speech. All they'd have to do is one day get 2 airplanes. We fly here, refuel at the base. We go on it. Neil goes on it. Obama goes on it. We get a whole bunch of people on it. This plane goes about 1,000 feet off the ground and just follows the coastline, and everybody looks out the left window and watches the coastline. That you can verify your speed, your where you're going, and there's really no way to trick that. Another plane at the same time goes this way, right? About 9 hours later, 6,500 miles later, both planes should meet over here. But as you know, that doesn't happen because we can't do it. One, they won't let us do it, but it's never been done. And as we talked before, Captain Cook did it. Took him 3.5 years. He went over 60,000 miles. Well, the equator, which is a smaller circle, is only 24,000 miles. So that makes a lot of sense, right? But if they wanted to end they say flat Earth is dangerous. It's anti-science. It's messing up kids' heads. Let's end it today. We need 2 airplanes, a tank of gas, and that's it. It's over in one day. And they'll never do it because the Earth is flat. They can't do it.
And like this guy, his name's Kelsey. I don't know if you've seen his channel. It's got a pretty, almost 1 million subscribers. It's called 74 Gear. He came out with a video recently called, Proving the World is Flat, and says he's a pilot and that he would like to take us on this trip. He'll be the pilot. He'll fly. And he gave kind of an idea of what he wants to do, which is travel from.
And YouTube promoted the crap out of that video.
Yeah, it's got 700,000 views or something. And he's going through and just saying how easy it is and how we could easily prove this. So what I did is I called him and said, okay, let's do it. Or not called him, but talked to him on Instagram and said, let's do it. And I said, the only thing we wanted to change, because he wanted us to leave from Miami and go to Buenos Aires and then go to Sydney. And I said, can we go LA to Buenos Aires to Perth, which Perth is over here on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And then, because he wanted to go here, but I know that they've taken planes this way. I want to go over here. And then I said, and then come back to LA. I said, we should go back to where we started from. And he said, well, why don't you call a travel agency? And I'm like, because you made a video saying that this was easy to prove and that you would be the pilot and that we could use your airline. And he's like, oh, well, I'm just a YouTuber. I'm not a travel agent. Like, what are you doing then? What are you making that video for? And that's just gone by the wayside. Now it's not even discussed anymore. And he might have realized it when I asked him to change the itinerary that he's never flown across Antarctica. There's so many pilots out there that will pretend like they know what's going on. They've never flown across Antarctica. They never have. But they'll say, oh, well, we can, and we there's no, and they'll say things like, oh, it's too cold down there. No, it's not. You're talking about flying 30,000 feet in the air. The ground temperature doesn't matter.
Right, doesn't matter.
Right. So it's just kind of ridiculous that it's always these kind of guys that come out and act real pompous about it, Professor Dave, and they can just make fun of it. We talk about all the time the North and the South, the differences. Up here in the North, there is nothing but animals and plants and squirrels and deer and elk and you name it, all up here. In the South, once you get down in this area, these islands here, there's nothing. It's cold, it's barren. When you get down here, like what are these called, like the Shetland Islands or something down here? There's Captain Cook said there's not a brush to make a toothpick. And they're completely different. Now, on a globe that basically is leaning towards the sun this way and then on the other side of the sun, so it's kind of getting 50-50 time, then it should be equal. There's no reason to have one that's so drastically different than the other. On a flat Earth, when you've got the sun and moon doing this, there is a reason that the sun gets close here and then goes out here.
Well, on the globe map, there are the driest, hottest place, right, is the desert in California.
Yeah, Death Valley.
Right? Death Valley, right, sorry. And that's above the equator, but then there's
but it's
there's
lower.
Places...
It's low.
Death Valley's right here, right?
Yeah, but the altitude is low.
Mm-hmm.
The lower you are, the more dense the air and the electricity coming from the sun makes it hotter.
Well, the topography of the Earth is different. It's not really, sometimes it doesn't have to be where you are on latitude, right?
Yeah,
you can have variance in temperature and vegetation all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily tied to what region that your latitude is.
Well, I'm trying to figure out. So I hear what you're. I mean, look. Trust me. I'm trying to get what you're saying, but when you talk about animal life, plant life,
right.
and you're talking about like, I mean, just drive across the United States. It's vastly different. There's pockets where there's tons of flora and all different kinds of animals. Then you get to the desert and there's not. I mean, how is that any different?
Because it's not desert we're talking about. We're talking about one that is like a frozen tundra out here in Antarctica, right? These kind of islands are just frozen. There's no animals. There's penguins in Antarctica. That's it.
But and I forgive me, I know, and look, I'm not used to this. I'm pointing at something, thinking you're looking at me pointing
Sorry.
at it because I'm looking at your map. But I'm looking. I mean, when you just did your circle with your map, you're going down into South America, and South America is lush with vegetation. So I don't.
Well, because I guess you
Costa
can't really
Rica.
see what the latitude lines are here versus here, right? But I mean, you're talking about this latitude line versus here. There's much more animals in this region than there is here. There's none. When you're talking about like 70, 80 degrees.
Yeah, like the equal latitudes north and south should have the same vegetation, the same animals, the same seasons, but they don't. They're completely different. And
Why-
then and
Whoa, hold on. Why should it have the same vegetation and animals?
because let's say June. So here, let me bring up the app here. The inner yellow line, can you see it, is the Tropic
Let me
of
bring it
Cancer.
bigger. Go ahead.
Want me to make it bigger?
No, I can do it. I'll put you on the
Okay.
big screen.
So the inner line is the Tropic of Cancer, and in June, February, March, April, May, June. So in June, the sun is all the way at that latitude, and that's when we have our inner northern summer. So Darren, what is that? 23 degrees? What's
66. You mean where the
66
north?
degrees.
You're talking about where the
Yeah.
north? Yeah.
So 6 months later, on a globe, the sun would be, it's supposedly because it's, it's tilted this way facing the sun, and then it comes around and it's tilted like that. So 6 months later, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sun moves out to the Tropic of Capricorn, and they should have the same weather, but they don't. Now, anything in between these two yellow lines, the sun is always very close to them. That's why it's called the tropics. It never gets far away. But when the sun's all the way out here, it's freezing in here. It's cold. It's cold where we are. In the farther north you are, because you're far away, but it's summer in Australia because the sun is directly over it. So again, when the sun goes all the way in June, it's over the Tropic of Cancer. Places like Norway and Alaska, the sun never gets far away from it. So if we have a 24-hour sun, you can see the sun go all the way around, and it doesn't set because it's not getting far enough away. 6 months later, the sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn, and places of equal latitude south should have a 24-hour sun, but they don't. There's no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Now, there are very long days out there, and that's a whole nother thing. I believe that has to do with the way the light lights up the dome, and it wraps around the dome, as you can see here. The closer we go out to the dome, the light wraps around. And
Sorry, I'm sorry. You're explaining this to me as if I am already like realizing that there's a dome above me. So forgive me.
Well, some other people believe that it's atmospheric when we talk about a dome. Because,
I'm just saying. I mean,
yeah.
I get here. Look, I understand, and I'm not trying to mock you. You're well versed and well practiced in this. I mean, you wake up every day and live this. I don't. So some of this, like, I don't know what inter north is. Like a lot of the stuff you're saying, I'm like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, can you forgive me for that? I don't.
We forgive you.
I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? It's like,
yes, it was hard for us all. I mean, we get it. And at least you guys are open to hearing about it, and you're not just dismissing it full stop, which is what a lot of people do.
If you throw terms out that I'm like, I mean,
well, so they tell us up north and down south and Australia is the land down under. Well, that's ball programming. It's very easy. The inner north, the outer south. So Australia is the land out over. That's okay. I coined that. You can. I'm trademarking it. But think about this. So the inner northern area, that's the Arctic area, and the outer southern area is the Antarctic area. You could agree with that. So we got the Tropic of Cancer. Anything inside the Tropic of Cancer, we'll call that the Arctic. Well, what's going on in the Arctic? Let me speed the sun up and you can take a look. The sun is arcing. If you're inside this circle in the inner north, the sun is arcing around you. Would you agree with that? It's arcing around you. It's going around you, making a big arc around you. If you're outside the Tropic of Capricorn, like in Antarctica or in Santiago, the sun isn't arcing around you. It's antarcing. It's coming towards you and going away from you. That's why it's called the Antarctic. It's not the Arctic. It's the Antarctic. So words have meaning. They're telling us everything. Okay. When
Dave, can you bring?
go
go
ahead.
I was going to ask you when you after that. Can you bring up the guy in the pool? I just want to answer this person's question because this is what's going around a lot in the communities. People saying things like this, that there's problems with the observation angles of the sun, and they're talking about one specific time of year in the south when you watch the sunset. According to the map that Dave has there, you would think the sun would kind of go on a left to right setting position towards the north, and yet what they see is it seems to be going from right to left to the south. And so people dismiss and say, well, the AE map must be right or must be wrong. But when you see how your observations can change looking through a medium, I just don't understand why people are looking up and deciding what the ground is like. That, this guy, oh, sorry, I need to put this up there. This guy here, lost it. There we go.
So this guy right here, he's not facing us, but it looks like he's facing us. He's facing straight forward, right? And as the camera moves around, it's always facing you, right?
And that's just from the combination of water and from curved glass.
Curved water. Yeah. Curved water, curved dome.
Which is really what the atmosphere is. And if you even look up the stratosphere, you can see that the stratosphere has, at the equator is 66,000 feet. At the mid-latitudes, 33,000 feet. At the poles, it's 13,000 feet. So we basically have essentially a dome-like curved atmosphere of liquid, or they call it what do they call it? Not a liquid, but a fluid.
And what I say is the optics of the sky are no way to prove the shape of the Earth. So when we look here, we got a curved glass, and we can see the 2 arrows pointing to the left. But when we pour some water in the glass, watch what happens to the bottom arrow. And if you didn't see the water, you'd be like, one arrow is pointing to the left, one arrow is pointing to the right. You'd be wrong, right? But that's how you see it. Right. So the optics of the sky, like you say, well, why do the stars rotate different direction in the south? Well, one answer could be is because you turned around and instead of coming from your right shoulder to your left shoulder, they're coming from your left shoulder to your right shoulder. And what you think one of those is clockwise, one of those is counterclockwise. But in reality, all the stars, the sun and the moon rise in the east and set in the west, no matter where you are in the world. The other answer is maybe they are going in the other direction because maybe the southern stars are a reflection of the northern stars. Okay. What do I mean by that? Well, there's some people that are doing some pretty interesting experiments that show that maybe the stars that we're seeing are not where we're seeing them. Well, and one last thing I'll bring up is a group of us sent a balloon up in Arizona, and it had cameras pointing up, and we could see at night, we could see the stars before it took off. But by the time it got to 50, 60, 70,000 feet, all the stars were gone. Okay. Ask me what's going on there. I don't know, but it's not heliocentric. That's for sure.
So the distortion there, or the mirror effect that the water's causing, right? So that explains kind of what's going on in the southern hemisphere.
We don't know
why folks on different extreme parts of lands in the southern hemisphere. Like
anything above our head, or excuse me, beyond the shoreline of Antarctica. Sorry about that. Is speculation. We don't know, but we can do experiments to theorize.
Right.
Like here's something that was in the news a while ago. What do you see here?
A hovercraft.
It looks like a ship floating in the air, but really it's just an optical illusion. Right. What it is it's
you can actually see it. You can see the water line.
No, once you see it, you can see it.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
But so So there was all these science magazines had it. They're like, oh yes, it's a Fata Morgana, whatever, mirage. No, it's not. There's a wind line here. This is water reflecting a very nondescript sky. And if I draw in the horizon, there's the actual horizon. This is just ripply water and glassy water. That's all. It's not floating. There's the horizon about there. And this water is reflecting a very uniform sky. So you're assuming this is a horizon. The horizon is an optical illusion.
And they admit that. They know you can't determine where the horizon even is. It's not a physical spot. It's the apparent meeting of the sky and the ground, and that changes vastly, which is not the globe proof at all. Like we talk about, you've seen the picture of Chicago across Lake Michigan?
Yes.
Right. And that's a big one I have at the beginning of all my videos because, of course, the meteorologist gets on there and says it's a mirage. Well, I know what a mirage is. I've lived in California. They happen throughout the entire summer everywhere. And mirages do not stay consistent. They are constantly adjusting, changing. They are inverted, upside down. It's a reflection of the sky. And then they show the buildings in Chicago, and they don't move. They are the buildings of Chicago. And
I used to have a time lapse of the buildings in Chicago over 24 hours.
And
changing conditions, changing light. They just stayed there the entire time, didn't move.
Now, the excuse that we get is that, yeah, but some of the buildings are covered by water. And you're like, yes, okay. And they're like, well, but then it's a globe. How else could it be covered? But their math tells us that you shouldn't be able to see any of those buildings. So why are we selling the buildings? And then you show them that water line changes. Well, what's happening is the oceans expanding and retracting. And go ahead.
So let's talk about that. That's one of the questions I had was this. When you say their math, I mean, is that the 8-inch, or the 8 inches per mile squared?
Yeah, we should talk about that real quick.
Is that the one we're talking about?
People keep saying that's not the correct formula. They say, oh, you didn't include refraction in there. Doesn't matter. We're talking about geometrically. Yes, if you take a ball of 24,901 miles, 8 inches per mile squared is a accurate prediction for the first couple thousand miles, which we don't need more than that because we're not going to ever see farther than that anyway. So anybody who says, oh, that's not the actual math, well, then ask them what the real math is and then compare that. And you'll see that if we're talking in 2,000 miles, you'll never be off by more than 1%. So that's just a ridiculous argument. You can take 8 inches per mile squared and you'll come up to the same thing that they come up to if they go through their square root of this or whatever. It's just an easier way to do it. In the first 2,000 miles or 3,000 miles, you can look at AutoCAD. It stays directly even with the actual numbers. Just an easier thing for people to get their handle on, right? If it's 3 miles, okay, then we've got 8 inches times 3, and you can from that get to, what is that, 72? And then multiply that or divide that by 12 and get your feet of curve. So it's accurate enough that we can use
it. You're still within it, even if you use the other formula.
Yeah, right. I'll show you on the AutoCAD.
They all work fine. And if you want to just give the globe an absolute, benefit of doubt, divide by 2. It still works. Right? Give half of the curvature back. Okay. So here's a building that you can't see. You look out at the horizon, it's an empty horizon. Zoom in, here's this building, but look, the bottom floors are missing. Okay. It must be over the curve, just like the same reason that you can't see me from South Carolina right now. But if you look, all of these balconies are the same height, but you can see they start getting compressed. And down here, if I zoomed in on this, you'd see that there's like 3 balconies right in here, and then the rest are hidden. So why? So that's showing you that you're seeing an optical thing. Now here's the question. Look at me. Am I thin? Can my finger hide from my chin to my nose? No, it doesn't appear.
Right.
So if my finger was one of these little waves here, but it was halfway to you.
Yep.
And everything looks like it's at eye level. When I look at a deck of clouds above me, they're 10,000 feet above me, but 20 miles away, they're touching the water. They're still 10,000 feet in the air, but to me, they're touching the water and they look like they're straight ahead. Okay. Now the sun is above those clouds. And as the sun goes away, it just sets.
Show them your video, Dave. Can you show that video, the kitchen video? It's great. One of my favorites. Okay. I love having Dave do that.
Yeah,
no, he does a good job. He did this experiment in his kitchen where
my flat Earth kitchen, my friend.
Yes, your flat Earth kitchen. And we know that.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm showing you this line right here. If you can see it, if you can make it big, Jeran.
Yep.
This line is level, and I'm moving this sun just across the line. Now we're viewing it from a celestial point of view. Now it's going past this opaque object. This could be a mountain range, a city skyline. It could be a cloud deck or just opaque atmosphere, but I never go below it. Now I got a camera on the counter looking at that going away. Now I'm showing the same thing again from the counter's point of view. And if I showed you this line first, I'd say, is this going down? And you say yes. And I go, am I going below this thing that looks like it's at eye level, but I'm really well below it? And look at the line. It looks like it's going more down than level, that's for sure. But it's really a level line. And this looks like it's at eye level. Okay. So now comparing this to the sun going away, this is a real image of the sun. Look, what's the sun going behind here? You would think that that's the horizon, but this is the atmospheric deck of opacity. I'll show you both again. The sun is just going away. And they look exactly the same. And this is just the sun from a higher point of view. And that's how we see the sunset.
And this is just to show you this real quick. This is the trigonometry versus the geometric curvature based on AutoCAD. So they keep saying, "Oh, the 8 inches per mile squared is not true," because they're trying to. They want, I don't know, for whatever reason they want to pretend like they're smart, but they want us to use this Excel formula here. The 3959 minus the cosine, all that. But if you look here, this tells you each mile the geometric versus the trigonometry, and you'll see it's the same. So even at 100 miles, you've got 66669 feet. Geometrically 1.26 by trig, and if you do the math on that, you'll see that it's less than 1% off.
Where can I get that? I was looking for that.
Yeah, I could get it to you. Or you just search. I just searched right now AutoCAD flat Earth, and it came up in the images.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's weird because I keep hearing them say that. In fact, somebody the other day said, "Oh, they keep using this. It's not even correct, but it is correct." And if they're talking about it's not correct, yeah, if you do 7,000 miles, it's not correct. And that's because, think about it, if you're trying to do some sort of formula for curvature, once you get a quarter of the ball, now you're coming back underneath your feet. So that creates a problem when you're talking about an equation. We're trying to see how far something drops, but if you're coming back under your feet, it actually is going to reduce that drop, where it should be actually expanding it. So that's why we just try and up to 1,000 miles is good. You can't see more than 1,000 miles. So that's all the curve we need, and this stays consistent up to 2,000 or 3,000 miles. And even after that, it's not that far off. It's just funny that they always say that it's not their math or it's not their equation. No, it's not. And they say, well, you got it from some flat earther, you got it from Samuel Rowbotham way back when. Well, because a guy in 1900 used a equation doesn't make it wrong. It's less than 1%. So because we can't see far. I mean, the farthest that we can see, probably Canigou. I know there's one beyond that that's a little bit further. The world record is something like 250 or 275. But even Canigou, which is a mountain that we can see from 175 miles, and you can't see it but 2 days a year when the sun goes behind it, and you can tell that that's not a mirage, that it's the mountains of Canigou, and it should be technically 2 miles below the curve. If you use their refraction, it should be a mile below the curve. So even with their refraction number, which again, they get to plug in whenever they want, right? They can just say, oh, it's not, we got to plug in the refraction until it works out, which is kind of my problem with their math when it comes to the sky. If I ask somebody, how do we know the distance to the sun? People spin in circles and spiral because they think it must have been done. Somebody must do it. And it doesn't get done. The way they figured out the distance to the sun was to call it 1 AU. And then they estimated that the size of Venus must be the same as Earth, which how the hell would they ever come up with that? Just looking through a telescope? Give me a break. That's what you have to believe, though, if you believe their story that they've told us, that they estimated and say, okay, we think if Venus was the same size of Earth and now it's crossing the sun and we know the distance to the sun is 1, and they could figure out from that how far away the sun is. But how come Newton couldn't figure it out? How come Copernicus thought it was 3 million miles away? Newton said, doesn't matter if it's 3 million or 54 million, either one will work for us. Throughout time, there's always these different guesstimates, and then they kind of reel in. They went with the 93 million. To me, that's a ridiculous number. So is the size, 867,000 miles wide. We can't picture something 30 miles wide, let alone 60, 100, 200 miles wide. 1,000 miles wide, 867,000 miles. And they just tell us that, and everybody goes around and says, that's the truth. That's the truth about how big the sun is. I don't think they have a clue. But if they get there first and they make something up, they look pretty intelligent to a lot of people, and a lot of people never would question them. So,
well, when you say make something up, I mean, I get it that myself, we haven't measured the sun. Like, I haven't done the math on measuring the sun. I mean, I started out, going into physics in school, and I was just in the wrong school. And, I took the first 2 years, and that's all they had in the curriculum.
mhm.
Right. So, I mean, there are people have done math to line up with that theory, and
Correct.
people repeat it. And I get what you're saying.
But math is not-
all that is a theory,
Right.
right? It's not been practically applied. Like, no one's gone out and
No,
measured the sun,
no.
literally.
Right. No. And the math doesn't mean anything for proof wise. Now, this is where they confuse people. Arithmetic can be used for proof, right? If we say,
Sure,
okay, we got
sure.
4 apples and 4
Right.
apples together, we have 8 apples. Okay,
Right.
nobody's arguing with that. But when you then say, oh, well, the sun is this big and it's got this much gravity and the earth weighs this much, time out. How do we know those things are facts? Because if you're just giving us those numbers, you could at first have this idea in your mind of, okay, let's say that things are orbiting the sun and that they're being pulled in by their weight. Well, then the sun would need to weigh this much and the earth would need to weigh this.
Yeah.
That's not proof. That's just you applying numbers and calling it proof. And so
Right.
that's a
Right.
problem. And then when I talk about scaling and difference all the time, that if we took everything that they tell us and we just reduced it by half, so now instead of the sun being 93 million miles away, it's only 45 million miles away, everything just adjusts and nothing changes from Earth. The observation wouldn't change a bit if everything was adjusted by the same amount, meaning the moon comes in closer. And like Dave said earlier, the fact that we have to believe that the moon is 400 times closer and 400 times smaller than the sun, and it just so happens we live in that period of time where we can see eclipses, and it's
And
astronomically
they repeat
insane.
themselves.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane. Earlier, I was talking about, and when I kind of lost you guys, saying that the light wraps around the dome. This is showing we have a lighter inside this upside down bowl, and when we bring it towards the edge of the bowl, the light wraps around the bowl, and it kind of gives us the same effect that we would see in these outer southern locations where the sun wraps around. So again, it's just another example. And then a moment ago, Jeran was talking about Mount Canigou.
Oh,
We
you're
speed
showing
this
it.
up. Yeah. So Mount Canigou is out here 175 miles away. The light that's bouncing off of Mount Canigou can't make it to our eyes. Now, a glober would say that's because it's below the curve, right? I would say it's just because the light can't push through that much atmosphere. Just like trying to look through 100 panes of glass. You can't do it, even though the glass is clear, right? But twice a year, the sun lines up with Mount Canigou from this viewing spot. And let me just jump it forward a little bit. And as it moves beyond it, all of a sudden you can see Mount Canigou is right here. The very top of Mount Canigou should be over a mile below the curvature if we lived on a globe. And the globe excuse is, oh, the sun already set, the mountain's already below the horizon, but it's refracting up and making it daylight and stopping at eye level. Okay, that's not
ridiculous.
even, I'd say that's just a retarded story.
Okay, hold on. This is all right. So I'm glad you're showing me stuff. So the image you just showed with the light in the
Yeah.
bowl,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? Whatever it was.
The bell.
light-
Yep.
Okay. So with that, because that brings me back to a question that I had earlier when you were showing me the map, is I kept wondering, I'm like, what's causing the dark spot? What's causing what I guess would presumably be night, right? On your map. Because if you go off this example, it's radiating all around. So why is there darkness at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is because we've been brainwashed to believe that the sun light just travels for billions of miles and billions of years.
Trillions.
Yeah, trillions. When the fact is that the sun, the light is like a radio. It's like a sound wave. It only goes a certain distance and then it fades out. It's getting smaller due to the angular resolution, not the angular resolution. The what's it called? The
Inverse square law.
Inverse square law, but it's also hitting particles going through the atmosphere. so it's not able to go forever. I'm just trying to find the sun.
One of the
fade out
best
real-
ways that I can describe it, and sometimes it helps people, sometimes it doesn't. But the room that you guys are in right now, if you picture that room all of a sudden being 5 miles wide, same ceiling, but now you've got 5 miles in every direction. It can be a huge room, right? Well, if you have a light above your head, if that light starts taking off and going across the ceiling, not very far from you, about say a mile or so, that light is
Yes.
going to meet the ground. The ceiling is going to hit the ground observationally, and then that light's going to disappear behind the curve, behind the horizon, and it's going to go off to the other side of the room. Now, somebody on the other side of the room, 5 miles away, is going to see that light start coming up like it's rising, and it's going to brighten their area of the room. But guess what? I'd be sitting here in complete darkness because the light does
Right.
not stretch from 5 miles to get to me in that room.
Just like these streetlights, they're all the same height. The sun is just moving away, and then over here, you see how this atmosphere is thicker because when you look up, you're looking through the least amount of atmosphere, but when you look across the atmosphere, you're looking through all of the atmosphere. So that just becomes opaque, and the sun just goes beyond it. Even though it's in the sky, it looks like it's at eye level. So, just another thing, the sunsets. Here we go. So this is a I filmed this west. So the sun was up in the sky, and in 10 minutes or 5 minutes times, it went down, 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 down. And now if the earth was spinning, it should just keep on going, but it didn't, right? It went here and it stopped. Now this is super sped up. It just sat here. This is a super, super clear day. Now my friends were at the beach. They saw the sun set from the bottom up 10 minutes ago. I'm still watching the sun from my drone, and it just faded out.
And that looks like
It's
the horizon
dark down here.
right.
And down here, this is my yard. It's dark. Okay. The drone is in the air. I can still see the sun. I'm just going forward and backwards here. The sun's light, the sun, the brightest thing in the sky, could no longer push through the clearest day. This is a super clear day, and there's no humidity because it was like 31 degrees outside. Okay. And it just faded out. How about that?
Yeah.
Welcome to Flat Earth, boys.
And they've got, they've always got all these different things. It's refraction. So when we see the sun, it's not actually there. They tell us that it's behind the earth or it's higher up. It's always these kind of nonsense claims that they can't back up other than just because they say it, they get the credence, right? These guys went to school, they've got papers. And, the peer review, they talk about that as if that's the way that we would get to the truth, which is the opposite of the way we would get the truth. Imagine if we had a certain belief, let's just say it's flat earth, whatever. And we all believe in the flat earth. And so we create a system where we say, okay, anybody who's going to bring any new paperwork needs to have it submitted to us. We will review it. We'll publish what we want to publish, and we'll turn away what we don't. That's not a good method to get to the truth, because if we just want the earth to be flat and that's all we'll accept, then what would happen? People would submit papers and say, well, here, we think this is wrong. And we would look at it and laugh and joke and throw it away and say, nope, we'll move on from that. And that's what they're doing.
And okay, and you know what? I understand totally what you're saying with that, and I think that's fair. I guess here's part of the thing, and part of it, for me at least, part of it is exactly what you're saying when you talk about indoctrination. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we've been taught. It's no different than religion and trying to break that cycle, right? I mean, I understand that completely, but at the end of the day, a lot of this, and yeah, I mean, I get it. If you believe in the globe versus the flat, it's like everybody can come up with something to say. So it's like all of this is just observation, right? I mean,
right. Well, that's what we're trying to get across to people is there's people on this earth that tell you they know. They tell you that they know that the earth can't be 6,000 years old because the sunlight takes 1 million years to get from the center of the sun to the corona of the sun. They don't know that. They're just saying words, and people believe them. And then they say that the light from the sun takes 8 minutes to get here. There's no evidence of that at all, other than people saying those words and doing mathematics. The sun is always shining, so how would you ever test that? What are you going to do? You can't shut the sun off and then turn it on and see how long it takes us to see the light. It's always on. So there's just all these little things that they say or love to bring up that tell me that we have men on this earth that think very highly of themselves, so highly that they have a worldview that they are the greatest thing that's ever been here, that there is no mind higher than this, that there is no creator of this, that they've figured it all out. And I always go back, I don't know if you guys know the Edwin Hubble story, but Edwin Hubble, who is responsible for the expanding universe, he's the right. Well, he's quoted as saying that he could not disprove that the Earth was central because he sees everything moving away from us. So he said, but an unwelcome supposition of a central location must be avoided at all costs. He says it's an absolute horror of being in a unique position. So this is science telling you that they absolutely will not allow the Earth to be at the center. So what did they do? They went out and said, anybody have any ideas? Well, guess what? People did have ideas like, well, what if we're on a balloon and we're all dots on a balloon? And if you blow up that balloon, everything gets further away from each other. Isn't
right.
That, and
I've heard you say that.
Right. So then they jumped on that and said, yeah, that's what's true. But they did. That's not science. Science isn't choosing the one that matches your worldview better and saying, let's run with this. Because what happens is you then build a whole entire enterprise on faulty foundations, right? So they never researched the fact of why does it appear that we're in the center? Why does it appear? And they've even gone, now they've got the cosmic microwave background that's lining up to the plane of the Earth, and they call it the axis of evil, and they don't know what to do about it. There's no way that the outer edge of the universe would match up and correlate with the Earth unless we're the center, unless we are important. And they just call it the axis of evil and move on. Even Lawrence Krauss has said before, that doesn't make any sense. That would throw in the face the Copernican principle. And it should be thrown in the face. Copernican principle is completely wrong. The Copernican principle is we're just some ho-hum planet going around some ho-hum star, just like all the other ho-hum stars, when what seems to be true is that we're the center. Now, I can say that and people could accuse me of doing the same thing. If I say we're the center, end of story, we're not on a balloon. Okay, well, we could be on a balloon, Jeran, right? There is evidence towards that. Well, it's the same evidence if you're talking about everything moving away from us, which, by the way, I've never seen. So, I mean, I don't even know if that's necessarily true, but that's what they base theirs off of. And it seems like every time they need something else, they go to one of these scientists and then they promote them like Einstein. Einstein is promoted big because of an idea that he had, a thought experiment that explained away some of the results, like of the Michelson-Morley experiment, which proved that we're not moving through space, that we're not dragging any ether, that they couldn't prove that there was a movement to the Earth. Einstein himself said there is no optical experiment that can determine that the Earth moves. He said, and then he says, but the Earth goes around the sun. That's how he finishes that quote, because that's his belief, right? So it's not, he's saying, yeah, there's no way to prove that. However, the Earth goes around the sun. Well, that's not really science. And then when you get into general relativity and special relativity, these are just ways of hiding the anomalies that they were having. And then to go further, when they have problems with gravity, so they're doing the gravity calculations on all the outer galaxies, they're not working out. So what did they do? They invented dark matter. They invented dark energy. These are things that we've never seen before, that have never been observed, that are considered true because they have to be. Well, why does Richard Feynman tell us that if something doesn't match predictions or experiment, then it's false? If that's true, and I like a lot of what Feynman said, yeah, he's a believer in the ball earth and everything, but I like some of his terminology and the way he looked at things. And he says, if it doesn't match experiment, then it's false. Well, guess what? Gravity doesn't match experiment. So is it false? No, it's true because we added dark energy and dark matter, and that now makes up 97% of the universe. That's ridiculous. It's not science. Go ahead, Dave.
Guy, I want to point out one thing. When we watch the sunset, you believe that you're falling over backwards, which is making the sun appear to go down, right? Because the Earth is spinning. But when you watch a sunset, film from, in clear, dry areas, you can clearly see that it's going away. And Paul McCartney sings "The Fool on the Hill" sees the sun going down, but the eyes in his head see the world spinning around. When in reality, we're not falling over backwards. The sun is just moving away. And then watch, as it's going farther and farther away, it's not getting lower. It's just perspective. It's getting blocked by things. It's taking its light with us, and it's becoming dark, even though the sun is still above the horizon, above the land. But your visual horizon is right here, and it's taking its light with us. That's how day and night happen.
Think of the 5 Mile Room. That's what you would see if that light's going away from you. It would disappear behind the so-called floor, and your part of the room would get dark.
You don't even know that you need the 5 Mile Room. Just go to the Bellagio in Vegas.
And look at the hallway.
The far end of the hallway, the lights are touching the floor.
And thanks everybody for the super chat. We got one from Davis, says this is top 3 best episodes. Wow. All right. Thanks.
Hey, I want to just throw a quick thing out there. Anybody that's having any issues with their app, some people have issues with their phone. Go to flatearthdave.com and hit the support link there. And that's the best way to get help.
And what do you guys think about, go ahead.
Flatearthdave.com. The email is actually support@theflatearthpodcast.com. But if you forget that, flatearthdave.com.
What do you guys think about von Braun and us bringing over all these Nazis and putting them in high positions and starting NASA? And I mean, that was hidden from the public. I mean, now it's out, but Operation
Yeah.
Paperclip.
Paperclip, right?
Yeah. I'm just wondering your guys' thoughts on things like that, because those are the things that to me are really telling. I mean, they matched him up with Disney, and Disney makes him a star, and they convince people that we're going. If you've watched some of those videos from like the 50s and 60s, man will be on the moon and man will do these great things and travel the stars. And so if it turned out that they couldn't go or whatever, they wouldn't have been able to. What are they going to do? Tell all the school children, never mind, we can't go to the moon. No.
So let's talk about that, because I found that to be really interesting in watching some of your videos after the podcast review that you did. So what you're saying is that lines up with the notion to control space, right? So von Braun is making these rockets. He's way ahead of everyone else, like in World War II. He was like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but he was months away from fixing his V2s so they could actually hit London from Germany, right? Something like that. And that's why we wanted him, because he's the only one that could really build stable rockets. And we needed that, to counteract what we thought, the Soviets were going to do. But all that is after the Manhattan Project, right? When the atomic bombs were being
you're talking to the wrong people about
finalized.
that. Go ahead.
Well, no. I thought on one of your episodes you were talking about when those were being tested, when the atomic bombs were being tested, they were hitting up against the underside of the.
They were launching bombs at the ceiling. They were launching bombs at the.
And people called them nuclear bombs, but we don't believe nuclear bombs exist.
Okay.
So yes, they were blowing up bombs in the sky, and they were telling us they were nuclear bombs. I mean,
so they weren't splitting the atom.
Yeah, no. If you go look at the footage they show us of the bomb going off and the house blowing up and the trees bending over, go watch that video again. It's on YouTube. It's clearly a claymation model. It's just a little miniature model. And then they show you the one of the bomb going off at sea and the guys on the ship. Nonsense, right? These are all just
propaganda
nonsense. And then Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there's video of them stacking TNT at the bomb sites, right? And then 3 days later, after the bombs went off, the sandwich shops were open, the flower shops were open, people were riding the trains and going back to work. That doesn't sound like a nuclear bomb to me. And only one guy was allowed to take pictures and send out press articles on it, and anyone else that took a picture or wrote an article about it was put in jail. What's going on there? This is all about fear and control. Everyone's afraid of Kim Jong-un. Here's something you can do. If you're stupid enough to watch the news, anytime you hear Kim Jong-un or whatever the hell his name is, start laughing, because everything they say after that is complete and total nonsense.
I just want to answer this person real quick, because somebody's just saying sad Jeran doesn't believe in the Bible. I think there's so much truth in the Bible. I just think that there are things that prove that it's man-made. And there's things that prove that it's been corrupted by governments, like Romans 13 that says all governments are placed here by God. And that if you go against your government, you go against God. And I don't need people to tell me, oh, well, you're misinterpreting it and it actually means this. No, you can read that chapter. It means what it says. So things like that tell me that it's been corrupted. And once it's been corrupted, I think it would be a foolish thing to do to say, okay, I'm still going to say it's written by God. God clearly never said that all governments are placed here by him. And if he meant back then, he would have said, I mean back then. Or if he said, oh, in the future, things will change and the governments will be corrupt. Look at the governments around. Look at Justin fucking Trudeau right now. And you tell me that God put him in charge of Canada. And that's ridiculous. So don't come at me like, I don't believe in the Bible. Yeah, because the Bible says something ridiculous, like God put Justin Trudeau there. He didn't. And everybody has a right to freedom and the God-given inalienable rights. And when somebody goes against those, you have a duty to go against that government, not the duty to not go against them, or else God, that's written by governments. So that's why I don't think it's written by God. But I do believe a lot of the Bible, a lot of Jesus's words are great. Love your neighbor, love God, love each other. Those things are fantastic. Nobody has a problem with that. But I just wanted to say that. And then somebody else talking about here, oops, I lost it. Oh, I just thought this was nice. Somebody says these guys are completely different than when they did the podcast. what has changed for you guys in the last 2 years? Do you think differently than you do 2 years ago based on what you've seen?
4
let
years
me-
ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
No, I'm talking about just in the last 2 years since COVID.
Oh,
Oh, what do you mean? Hold on. Wait a minute. When you say in the last 2 years in regarding
Everything.
flat Earth, or are you talking about the society and COVID? And
Yeah,
all that?
maybe your opinion of what science is, maybe your opinion of what governments are.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. So,
I'm just wondering if it's changed at all, or you still feel the same today that you did 2 years ago.
well, no. Well, I mean, that's kind of a broad question. I mean, still feel the same in what regard? I mean, like, look,
Even I
do
don't feel the same as I did 2 years ago based on what
no,
I've
no.
seen.
I mean, I guess the question is, especially since this is more our topic initially is about a science-based thing or
Right.
lack of, right?
Right.
So,
And I heard you
that
guys bring
said,
up like
yes.
global warming. You brought up global warming as being something that you felt did maybe have some evidence towards some kookery going on, right?
I did. Who? Well, look,
One of you did. One of you did on the podcast. I don't remember who it was.
But one of us. You got to remember that was like 4 years ago. and
True.
I'm getting old. So
One of you said that
Um,
you said that there are some conspiracies that have
oh,
credence
that was
to them.
Beau.
Yeah.
Right. That there was. Yeah. Right. Well, then Beau can answer that. I can't speak for what Beau's thoughts are on global warming. But when you ask about, do I feel differently? Yeah. Well, first off, I think that it's sick because I mean, and look, I'm not into 100% conspiracy theories, and that's really for me the one thing. Like when you guys, and when it goes to the flat Earth and the science, where I'm like, I really don't see the end game. I don't see the point, and I don't see how it can be perpetrated. But that being said, I'm not foolish enough. I'm not saying that, oh, I buy into everything the government does and everything is on the up and up and they're on our side. Because clearly, I'm so sick of hearing follow the science, follow the science. And I'm like, none of you motherfuckers seem to know what the science is on either side. It drives me out completely crazy. So, in that regard, yeah, things have changed.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm irritated, and it's like, and that goes to help prove the point you guys have with conspiracies. It does make you wonder and really have lack of trust, in my opinion.
Right. And I mean, there's things that they were, YouTube has not allowed us to say that ends up being public knowledge, or now it's in the mainstream, right? So things that we weren't allowed to say. You would get taken off YouTube if you said that the virus came from a lab. Not saying we believe that, but there was people who were saying that, who were told
Right.
you're not allowed to say that, had their channels removed. 6 months later, now that's the mainstream belief.
Right. It's cool now, as they say it. Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I get you. I mean, that's
Right.
it's.
So the problem is, I mean, I believe in free speech, absolutely 100%.
Absolutely, me
right?
too.
Okay, good. And
Yeah.
I defend anybody's right to say anything. Now, when somebody comes in and they start stopping free speech, to me, that's their admission that what they are preaching is not backed by evidence. Because if it was, then you would be able to defeat arguments with evidence and with truth, and not just sequester or end the speaking out against whatever it is the topic is. And that's kind of where this is going. And I don't think that it's going to be very long that we're able to talk about some of these topics, because it's just going to become the next one that they already did their best, and they did a good job when they throttled all these channels. They did an excellent job of slowing down the exponential growth that comes with. Because if you get promoted, if you're a Jake Paul or one of these guys that whatever his name is, I forgot his name, Jake Paul, whatever, Logan Paul. If you're like Logan Paul, or you eat tricks out of a bathtub, or you put makeup on yourself and you're a guy, whatever it is that they want to promote. When that person gets to like 50,000 subs, it starts to exponentially grow. That channel will then, because you have more people sharing, more people showing up in their recommended, boom. Now you've got millions of views, and you are, everybody watches you. With us, as soon as we get to a certain number, I don't know what that number is, 20,000, 50,000, they turn off all those recommendations. So you're now preaching to the choir, talking to the same people every time. They're not letting it grow. And to me, they're afraid of what would happen if we ever came together as people. Now, it's very difficult to come together on abortion. It's very difficult to come together on trans rights. Why? Because there's two polarly opposite positions, right? And it's very difficult. With something like this, we start to be able to see some people come together and realize we're being lied to on a mass level. And that's what it would take if we're ever going to make changes, is you can't have 50% of this country against 50%. Now, a lot of people think that they turn us against each other on purpose, right? Race with money with globe Earth versus flat Earth? Is it all just a distraction so that we don't come together? That's the thing that worries me. So when you say, what do we do about it? Well, that's the tough thing. Is are we falling for the trap of now we're arguing about this topic and look what's going on around us that we're not paying attention to, right? So that's the only worry I get from this. But I think it's important to get to people because the people who do see it, now they see everything. Now they're awake. Now they haven't been fooled by this, what's going on around us at all, which is good. I was just wondering where you guys were because I know a lot of people, my sister being one of them, who felt completely different 2 years ago versus now. And many reasons for that, but mostly because I'm her brother and I would tell her things like, no, don't put on that mask. If you do, they'll never take it off. They're never going to stop. They're going to make you do, the mask will become a vaccine. And she's like, no,
Right.
It's the same as putting on shirts and shoes. You put on shirts and shoes to go into the store, don't you? They can make you put on. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the problem. I said, the shirts and shoes never became vaccinations. And that's what's going to happen. She said, no, they'll never require vaccinations for you to shop. They'll never. And then, so when she sees what happens, she all of a sudden is like, oh shit.
Right.
My brother was right. Now I see what, because she said she drove away from me one time in July of 2020, and her and her friend were talking shit about my wife and I for not wearing a mask. Oh, these guys are so selfish, and then she realized, oh, that's not the reason I was saying I didn't want to wear one. It was because I knew where it would go.
Right.
And so,
no, I understand. No, I mean, it's no different than I think I told Beau this not too long ago, but I heard, and this was like right in the beginning. I mean, I think this was, like in the summer of 19, and Rand Paul was like, somebody asked him something about when do you think we'll get the mask off, and he was like, oh, never. You never. He goes, this is going to be, they're going to get a grip and you'll never take that mask off again. And I was like, wow. I mean,
Jordan Peterson really said it well recently when he talked about that. What they do is they keep pushing you until you fight back, and then they back off, and then they push you a little bit more until you fight, and then they back off. But the problem is that whole path is nothing but you backing up overall. And we don't really notice it, but we saw it with 9/11. We're seeing it now, where they can just come up with a pandemic in a month, 2 months, 3 months, and put us right back into the same thing. And now this time it will be like readily accepted because people now are like, oh, this is what happens in pandemics. We all put on masks and we mask our children and we go get tested and we get inoculations, and it just becomes a problem with a overarching kind of, and the science, the use of science is a shame. That's a shame to me because there really should be something like that we can all kind of get behind, and there isn't anymore because it's been co-opted. Whether it's and the media is, I mean, for me, the number one issue by far is the media.
No, and I totally agree with. And with the co-op thing, it's like, I think the problem is, and this is not, and believe me, I by no means am trying to like booster the point of you guys questioning the science that we guys believe in, but I find it disheartening when, especially, and again, this was a question I had earlier on and never got to it, but I have a problem when you have people who are doctors and people who practice medicine, and it's like, how can it be so different? How can I have one doctor that says this and one doctor that says this, and you've studied the same thing, and you're claiming it's not politicized? How? It's clearly politicized. It's the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever heard. I mean, it's like, it's gotten to the point, and that's the bigger thing to me is like, what's the deal with the psychology of everybody now? Not so much your political views, because
do you think it answers the question though that we have schooling, and there's people, they all come out of the school, and the ones who veer off that track start having a different mindset, and the ones who stay on the track of what they were taught, Rockefeller medicine, germ theory, they stay on the same track, and they're afraid to speak out because of what happens. We had the American Frontline Doctors, right? Those guys came out, spoke out, and got shut down. It's the same thing with the Globe Earth and the Flat Earth. We had a pilot come on to Globebusters, the show I do on Sundays, and she spoke about her opinion that the Earth was flat and all the reasons that it's flat and the way the plane works and how she correlated that with Flat Earth. The next day, she got grounded for mental health. She wasn't allowed to fly the plane anymore. So now, at that point, do you think more pilots are going to stand up and say that what's being taught is not correct, and that no, they're going to shy away because that's their livelihood. So look at doctors; it's the same thing. These doctors make 150, 200,000. Who knows how much they make a year? But they know that if they speak out against the narrative that's going out there, that they will not have a job. They will not be able to feed their family anymore. So to
They're
me,
funded by big pharma too.
right, same thing with the media.
That's true. No, you're right. I guess though, to answer that though, we're looking at scale here. I mean, let's be honest. We're talking about flat Earth versus a spherical Earth, and it's like, and neither side can 100% prove anything. Not that medical science.
Hold on, I disagree with that. We can prove we don't live on a ball. We can prove we see too far.
Okay.
We can every experiment that's ever been done to prove axial rotation or curvature has failed. We proved there is none. Okay, so we scientifically prove that you can't have high pressure next to low pressure. The water lays flat. I mean, there's so many proofs. Lots of things will go into the works on both.
Right.
Many things go into only works on a flat Earth. Nothing goes into only works on a globe Earth. So to say that you can't prove it, that's incorrect. We've proven it.
So this your position. I mean, there's got to be a way, or there's got to be a plan for globe busters, anti-globists, flat earthers to get that into the mainstream. Because really what you're talking about is it would be using, the good thing about the scientific method, in an abstract, not in the way it's been used now. Because I'm right there with you. Scientists work within certain parameters so they can keep their funding, so they can keep that model going, right? The money that's being pumped back into the economy, the jobs that don't really produce anything. But there's got to be like a second generation or plan for that to get that in the mainstream. Because, you're saying you have proof, but in order for it to hit mainstream or be more widely accepted, it's got to fit into that model that's already there. And
that's the problem, right? That it's completely different.
Right, the models.
It's an antithesis to it. And that one has been described as dumb and the other one intelligent. And the media that's the sad thing. The media could say anything and the country would believe it. So it becomes almost impossible to get that into the mainstream. They're not going to talk about flat Earth. When they talk about it, they have to talk about it as it's dumb. What's the one story that hit flat Earth in the last 2 years? Is the guy who went up in a rocket and killed himself. That's the thing that they're going to bring up.
Well, let me tell you my personal experience. So and it's information that I got from your videos and what's his name? The Flat Earth Clues.
Okay.
What's that guy's name?
Mark Sargent.
Mark Sargent.
Sargent, right? Mark Sargent. So one of the things that really struck me is this curvature formula and not being able to see that, like, really resonated with me. Because to me, that's something that you should be able to go out and objectively prove, which you've done. But it hasn't been submitted as a paper. It hasn't been submitted into the system.
Where are you going to submit it?
If you did, well, I don't know. Like that's the thing. To me, that's what seems to be worth the effort to try to do.
But there is
you should be able to use.
There's 400 people. Yeah, but there's people who do peer review who all believe the same thing. And so if you ever bring something like flat Earth, what that does is it spits in the face of every one of those guys and tells them everything that they've been studying for all these years is garbage. So why would they ever accept that?
But that's kind of been the story all through, our human.
Sure, if you believe that story,
right?
Well, no. I mean, like over the last 500 years, scientists always hit up against the mainstream. The person that has a revolutionary, view always gets chopped down, and they have these deathbed, confessions.
Do you believe that? I mean,
no. Copernicus, right?
I don't believe that story. I mean, how can you believe that he had all these ideas and waited till he died to give them out? I mean, it just seems a little over the top.
Because he supposedly feared for his life. Because the mainstream then was, if you went against the mainstream, then you got burned at the stake.
Well, and how is that any different?
Well,
Giordano Bruno. Yeah, I got you.
But
I'm just using the concept.
And what Buzz just said, how is that any different from you and I when we were just talking about the medical doctors, where you were like, they're not going to come out and speak this because we know what's going to happen to them? How is it any different with Copernicus?
Yeah, well, now I mean, you can have your entire name trashed, and I mean, these
Then he would
doctors.
have been killed. I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. If you believe, yeah, I mean, I have a trouble with a lot of history because I see what happens right in front of me and how the media can distort things. So when I look at history, I feel like I'm being told a story for a reason, not being told scientific
Sure.
facts of what happened in the past. They tell you that Galileo was put on house arrest because he promoted heliocentrism. Well, you look into it, and he lived in a castle and was blind. Well, they told him
Right.
to stay home. I mean, come on, it's not house arrest. He lived in a castle. He was very popular,
Right.
very famous, very rich. So, if you even believe that. So, but you hear all these things about Newton and the apple falling on his head. That turns out to be a lie. You hear about
Sure.
Galileo dropping balls from the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That turns out to be a lie. So it is really just stories that we're being told, and
100%.
yeah, based on a timeline that doesn't even really. I think I brought it up in the podcast. You guys said something about here in the 21st century, which I just find so funny that people always bring up these centuries that are based off the year Jesus was born. Has nothing to do with how long people have been here. They're like, in the 21st century, we still believe that what the hell's that number? You're just making shit up. But why in the 76th
Yeah.
century, we believe. It's just funny that people refer to these things as if they mean something. But no, I get what you're saying. I see what you mean by it. And you're right. We do have to fight through the current beliefs. But one way to make sure that it always is very difficult to do that would be something like peer review.
Sure.
Right? Neil deGrasse Tyson gets up there and he says, here's why science is so great, because some guy goes out and he proves something about evolution, that these birds have beaks and these ones don't, or whatever. And then he says, and then other scientists, they look at it and they say, I don't agree with that. I'm going to go disprove that idea. That doesn't
Right.
happen. That doesn't happen. There's no scientist that's out there disproving evolution, because evolution is the only thing that you're allowed to think in science. And so all that happens is
Right.
people go out, they get funding for evolution, they prove evolution, at least in their mind, and then they go teach that in the schools, and there is nobody allowed to refute it or ask, why is there no such thing as one cell going to two? If you can't do
Okay.
that, how the hell did you get evolution? Where's
So-
go ahead.
two things on that. I agree with you. But how about this? Do you feel that it's really a conspiracy and like something's being kept for some end game, or do you feel it just is people got lazy and it's like we're done, we figured this out, and then lazy and egotistical, right? Because couldn't it be one, or it could be either or, right?
I think that there's some psychopaths that live
Right.
here.
That's the exact word I was thinking of.
There are people here who love control, who love power, who love money so much that they're willing to do anything for it.
They're
And
satanic psychopaths.
yes. And so one of the ways to do that, I mean, I've always said before, if you had a bunch of money and power, I don't think you sit around the table and think, how can we make sure that all these children growing up are smart as could be, know everything, know how to take our money and our power? It would be the opposite. You would say, how do we make these people into slaves? How do we create a tax-paying slave class? And if you look at what we were all taught in school, that certainly seems like what was going on. It was all pro-America. We're the greatest democracy, and we
Pay
don't
your taxes.
pay your tax. We don't teach you anything about money, balancing a checkbook, how you can
Go
get
to
in trouble with
war
credit
when we
cards.
tell you to go to
exactly
war.
what I was getting ready to say.
Right.
Yep.
Stick this into your arm when we tell you to stick this in your arm.
Right.
It's absolute insanity. The big pharma has a stated goal to have every kid by age 11 on at least 3 lifelong medications, right? It's not about our health. It's about taking our health, maintaining their wealth and power. And they don't care about us. They literally, we are the useless eaters, but they need us because
to build their shit, to build their car, to build their
shit and
houses.
to create their world. It's more than just the physical part.
Sure.
It's the spiritual, mental part. This world we live in is much more than many of us truthers realize. It's a world that is created by our own thoughts. Our thoughts create our reality, and it can prove that every single thing you have in your life is because of the way you think. Just look at your life, look at the things that you have, look at the things that manifest in your life, and it is because of the way that you think. There's people that live their whole lives paycheck to paycheck, live their whole lives struggling. Other people, come into wealth, lose all their money, get it all back again. It's all the way that you think. They don't want us to know that we have this incredible power, that we have this incredible freedom, and that there's incredible abundance around us. They don't want us to know that because then we're uncontrollable.
Have you guys ever done the rice experiment?
True.
And I don't know what your beliefs are as far as a creator or whether evolution is true, but the rice experiment's one where you take 3 jars and you put cooked rice in each one, equal amounts, seal the jar, and you're never going to open it again. You mark 1 love, 1 neutral, and 1 hate. And every day at the same time, set an alarm. You tell the one rice that you love it and how much you care about it and how great it looks. You tell the negative rice you hate it and it's a piece of shit, and don't do anything to the neutral rice. After about a month, you'll notice that the love rice remains looking like it's edible. The mediocre rice, or the middle one, the neutral one, looks a little bit iffy, and then the one you've been telling that you hate it so much is black and moldy. So that tells me that what we say, how we feel, actually transcends into reality. Well, look at the news does. The news every day is telling people negativity. Cop shoots black person, racism, hatred, governments. It's all just crap weighing down. So that creates the world. And if we realize that, and everybody turned off the news and started promoting the good things going around, the people donating to the homeless or helping people, the less fortunate, then the whole world would change. But these psychopaths at the top know that. And so what do? They make sure that there's always strife, that there's always problems, that there's always homeless people. This is why we don't save the homeless. Why? You have to scare the middle class. You have to scare the middle class to be afraid of something. If you have no homeless, what are there to be afraid of? Well, with the homeless, people are like, shit, I better keep my job. I better pay my taxes, or else I'm going to end up like that guy on the corner. So it's just, and what they're going to do is further divide this world. It's going to end up as two classes. There's going to be no middle class. There's going to be the serfs, and there's going to be the ultra elite that have 99% of the money if we don't do something about it. But this is just one of their tools, and keeping people lost about where they live and feel like you're trapped. And what do they tell us? Everything's been explored. There's no exploring to do. Everything's been discovered. We know everywhere on this ball Earth. End of story. No need to discover anything. It really just traps you into what else is there to do but work away my life? And maybe I get lucky a few times and get to go to a baseball game or something. Well, that's kind of what they want you to think like.
First off, have you done that rice experiment?
Yeah, I did it.
And did it work?
Yeah, it's so noticeable. It's embarrassing. And by the way, science cannot ever admit that, because science will say you cannot measure love and hate, and therefore it's not something that's scientifically provable.
They can't even figure out consciousness. So I mean, I get it. I mean, but I'm just curious, because that's I mean, of all experiments, that's so simple. I'm going to do that this weekend. I can't wait to try.
Do it, and then
you did that with your kids, I thought, already. Didn't you know?
Me? No, that's a different experiment. It's like, I love you, I hate you, and you just get the hell out of here.
But that'll work. You watch what happens.
You watch what happens.
But I learned, because I used to yell at my dog. My dog would be in the backyard barking, and I would just turn constantly, just shut up, shut that back up, just yell at the dog. And after I did the rice experiment, I'm like, shit, I'm like affecting the dog.
Well, no. I mean, believe me, I used to deal with animal training and stuff. I mean, but that's positive reinforcement. I mean, we're talking about something that's a living, breathing creature, and rice in a jar. I mean,
well, so I have a feeling that if you were to tell somebody every day how good they look and how beautiful they look and how attractive they are, that person's going to end up looking a lot more attractive than if you talk shit to them for 10 years.
That's true. Well, that'll never happen with me, because I don't tell anybody that. But I got you. I mean,
your poor wife.
Well, yeah, that's what most people say when they talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that I think that we can't even explore those things, because science says that they don't exist. If you talk to a scientist about the rice experiment, they'll say that doesn't happen. Sorry.
No, I'm going to try it, and we'll see. I mean, again, that's one more thing. I had never heard of that. I'm going to put it into practice. That's certainly a simple enough thing to do.
Yes.
And we'll see what happens. And if I'll let you know if it's like I got 3 jars of just shitty rice.
And the only advice I would give you is make sure that you actually are believing it. You have to, I'm telling this rice I love it. I'm telling this rice I hate it. I think if you
that's not going to work very well with me.
Well, you have to figure it out.
They'll all be brown.
If you just go like this, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I love you, I love you, I love you, then don't be surprised when nothing happens.
Well, I'm going to hate them all, because I'm not going to want to.
They'll all turn black.
Jerry, put steak in each of those jars, Jerry.
Yeah, if it's meat, that'd be different. I'm going to have a problem. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, but and
sorry, no, we got off on a tangent there.
Sorry, but no, you had said something else. It was equating to the rice thing.
The news putting out negativity.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when you're like, I can't remember exactly what you said, but when it comes to, here's my thing. I think it's one of these things where, when it comes to like the news and society and the world and the landscape of that, I mean, because let's be honest, at the end of the day, right now in everybody's forefront, that's more important than whether the earth is flat or round. I mean, it's like, and that matters to you guys.
Well, it helps a lot of people. It helps a lot of people see through lies.
Well, no, I get what you're saying, but you want to be proven true. We want to feel that we weren't taught something that was inaccurate. But in its rudimentary form, that's pretty much what it is. But when you go back to what else, all this other stuff going on, one thing you'd said, like the media is doing it for one reason. Like the government might want to scare us for a reason completely different than the media, right? They just happen to their end goal comes together. Does that make sense? Do you see?
Yeah, I think they're all controlled from a top-down perspective, so they're all kind of working on the same team. But yes,
I mean, what's the media's point in it? Yes, it might help a certain.
But the media is supposed to be the only tool that we have to expose corruption, right? But we have a media that is profit-based. They work
100% controlled by the people that are controlling us.
Yeah. Right.
That's a problem. That's no longer media.
You just made a comment saying that we want to be right and you don't want to be proven wrong. Well, we don't want to be right. We want to find the truth, whatever it is. We're not invested in anything other than the truth. And because we've done the work, we know that the earth is not a globe and we know it's some sort of flat plane. So it's not that we want to be right, that we want to win. We just want the truth. And the thing is, you said that we think this is important. This is important because this is why we're in the situation that we're in. People don't know who they are, right? I keep saying the same thing again. Don't know who we are, where we are, what we are, the power of our thoughts. They don't want us to know that. We're literally in the Matrix, like Neo in the Matrix, okay? He's plugged in, people that think we live on a ball are literally plugged into a mind control matrix. They believe they live on this spinning ball, that we're running out of water, we're running out of food, we're running out of gas, dinosaur juice, right? They believe all of this nonsense. But when you unplug from this and see reality, it doesn't matter the shape of the world, the shape that the world's in, the situation. It matters, now I see it. And once you see through it, you take your power back. You stop feeding them this spiritual power. So this is a spiritual war that we're in, whether you believe it or not. So once you unplug, and I'll tell you, every flat earther, they see through it all. I used to wake people up to the thing that happened in New York and other places, Boston, and they go right back to sleep. They're like, well, whatever, I still got to go to work. But once you see the reality of our world, once you understand that you are at the center of creation, not on the outskirts flying through an infinite space vacuum, then you regain your power and you take back your true purpose. So is flat earth important? Yeah, it's the most fucking important thing out there. Without it, we're lost. If you believe you live on a globe, no, not just to me, to you, to every single person.
It's not to me.
Yeah, because if you're lost in space, spinning out of control, what power do you have? Your mind is spinning out of control through an infinite space vacuum. That's you've given away 99% of your power. When you understand that you are on a solid foundation, you understand that nobody has control over you other than in your imagination. The only people that have control over you is in your imagination. Nobody. You are a powerful, sovereign being that nobody has control over. Right. But you've been convinced. You've been convinced to obey Satanists.
I get your motivational thing going on here. It's like, I do find it funny. This is kind of why I asked how you both came to this. And it's funny to see the difference. And I mean, it cracks me up. But that's for a whole nother time. I mean, we don't have enough, at least I don't have enough time.
We got to wrap it up pretty soon.
Yeah, I don't have enough time to do this. But it's interesting. I mean, again, I'm not telling you you're right. And I'm not telling you you're wrong. When it comes to what I believe whether I know if you're right or wrong, or I'm questioning certain things. And I think it's a little of all of those things. I think in certain things, my beliefs are right. And some I'm like, I see exactly what you're saying. And in some I'm like, I can see where you're coming from, but I'm really on the fence with that. And I mean, if nothing else, I think that's, considering what I've listened to with the show, I think it's a pretty fair statement.
Yes,
right.
I agree. As long as you think that flat Earth makes more sense than believing in Santa, then we can end the show. And
look, I believe in Santa, and I always will. I mean, I have 4 children.
You believe in St. Christopher? No, leave St. Christopher alone.
St. Christopher doesn't never help me out. But.
Before we wrap it up, send me your Bitcoin address so I can send you your Bitcoin.
Oh, you wanted proof.
As soon as you give me one proof of the
You
globe.
wanted proof for the Bitcoin.
There it is. He's got it, Dave.
Yeah.
Send it to him.
Send me your
You
Bitcoin
said
address.
prove there's.
We didn't get into. We didn't get enough NASA talk.
No, there's a lot of stuff.
You guys know NASA's nonsense.
We could
Come
have you
on.
back if you guys are polite enough that we could do it again if you want to do it again.
I want to talk about Mars. I want to talk about. There's a few things I didn't get to talk about, but yeah.
Let's do a NASA and Mars show. I like that.
Can we do that? That would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe just reach out. Well, maybe we get like a top.
This Mars is this the Mars you want to talk about? Yeah, that Mars.
Looks like the sun.
No, that's Mars. That's Mars through today's optics. You zoom in on Mars.
Oh my God!
Wait, I saw the rover. I saw it.
The rover's on the other side.
Oh
Jeran.
shit!
Don't
my
be
bad.
silly.
Sorry.
Do I get more Bitcoin if I show up with Mars? Because my son still has.
What does that say on the bottom of that? What does the sticker say? What does the sticker say on the bottom of the globe?
Say?
What does it say?
Made in China.
No.
Well, hold on. Shh.
Let's hear it.
Read it out loud.
Well, it was $24.99.
Okay.
Keep reading.
No, this was made in India.
Okay, keep going.
Anything else?
No, it's covered. Something's being covered up. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Oh, is this the conspiracy?
Is it covering up the conspiracy?
What does it say?
Shit, I would love this if I find something really.
What does it say?
It'd be great if it
Hold
was
on,
on there.
I'm trying to get it. They've really, those motherfuckers in the government have posted this goddamn sticker on
It's Fauci. Fauci put that sticker on there. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Fauci, shit. He couldn't fucking tie his shoe. Hold on. All right.
Look, we agree there.
I need my readers. Oh my
It's
God.
worth it.
It's in whatever. It's not English.
Oh.
All right. What
But
it
you
says.
know what? How about this? Fair
what
enough.
it says is not for educational purposes, for decorative purposes only.
Yeah.
So sorry, you will not be getting any Bitcoin.
We don't like your decorations around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it'd be good to do a show because we didn't get into NASA enough, and they obviously need to be exposed. And yeah, it's tough for people because people have a lot of space. Were you guys Star Wars fans?
No, I love Star Wars. I like both. I mean,
yeah, I know.
But hold on, do you not? I have that does bother me. Do you not like any of those?
I didn't. No, not growing up. But that's just
Star Wars.
Yeah,
Star Wars or Star Trek. You don't find
I love Star Wars and Star Trek. I used to love them.
Most people do. I just didn't.
Why don't you now?
Because they're Disney.
Because it's not real. It's not.
Okay, hold on. Wait a minute, dude. Do you like Marvel?
No.
But it seems like one they try and pass as being real, and the other no. They have documentaries that are nothing but cartoons being shown spinning balls in space.
So
and
this is
galaxies
why I don't like it. This is why I don't like it anymore. This is William Shatner coming out of he shot up in outer space, right? Now watch this. Watch what happens. He's going to slam into the ground. Where's the EMS? Where are the doctors? Okay. This thing slams down, and then all they have is a couple reporters and hugs and pats.
Their own reporters.
Yeah, their own reporters. Nobody. This guy was just slingshotted into space, slams down on the earth. You know, I run a school fair, right? We have rides. We have to have an ambulance there. We have a winter swim thing. There has to be an ambulance there. There are ambulances everywhere, but no ambulance here. This guy,
he's 90 years old, right?
He's 90 something. Okay. And look, no EMS, nobody checking on him.
Right.
And the sad thing is too,
our NASA discussion's over.
What does that have? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about who likes Star Wars or Star Trek.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying this is Captain Kirk.
I never liked it.
So
but he's not.
Oh yeah,
he's a sellout.
That's my point, I guess, because that's one thing I've heard where it's like, I guess because of the belief, and it's like, you know, because I mean, even Beau and I, if we're like, no, the Earth is a sphere, but Star Wars is obviously fictional, but it's still a good story.
But hang on, I'm with you. I love a good distraction.
I mean, how do you not like?
You know what? No, I still do. I still do like it. It's just different. I do like a good distraction. You know, I was just on a show. Who was saying? I was just on with Eddie Bravo, and he says he knows sports is just a distraction, but he loves a good distraction. So I'm okay with that. I love a good series. So
Right.
occasionally I will watch TV.
Yeah, you'll go crazy if
Um,
you don't actually
yeah.
get out of your head a few
and
times.
but that's
Right.
what it's designed for. It's designed to distract you from reality.
Yeah, I think it's
But
sad. I think that they've turned men into cucks, basically.
Women?
Men in the world.
Yeah.
They've just men now like to watch
Uh,
other men play video games. Men like to watch
Well,
other men play sports. Men like to watch other men have sex. Men like to watch. You can go on and on and on. Where men are not actually out doing things anymore. Now they sit down and watch everybody else do it, and that to me is a sign of it's going to be tough for us to fight back. But one thing, Dave, I don't know if I told you either. The World Economic Forum, right, with Klaus Schwab and all this nonsense going on. If you look at the graduates from that global leaders, wouldn't you know, Bezos, Musk, and Richard Branson, all three of them are part of it. Just crazy that the three people who've gone to space are all together under this forum where everybody who leads every country, Trudeau, Markle, Ardern down in New Zealand, every one of them came out of this school. It's just the facts are right in front of us. The evidence is right there. We know who's doing it, and we just need people to stand up and scream it. So
yeah. Hey, one last question
yes.
for you guys. Most important question of all. Do you have my app?
My answer was prearranged. I was going to say 6.5 inches, but what?
Do you have my app?
No, I don't have it.
If you would like, I will gift it to you guys. Just
oh, what a nice guy!
Phone. Well, let me know what you guys have. iPhones or Androids?
iPhone.
Yeah.
All right, so give Jeran and your email address associated with the App Store, and I'll send you the app for free.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it.
All right, and then just watch.
Show them
the
the video that they can watch every day.
Yeah,
give me the teaser to get me excited.
Yes, we'll give you the excited.
So let me just pull it up here. So every day there's a new video right here. All you do is tap that video, and up comes the daily video. And what I tell people is watch the daily video every day for 2 weeks, and at the end of that 2 weeks, you too will lose the respect of your family and friends because you'll be a flat earther. Okay, but so you watch those videos every day, and then right here is the frequently asked questions button. Hit that. And many of the questions that you'll ask, like, hey, what about eclipses? If I clip that, up comes a playlist of videos that YouTube won't feed you. These are all shadow.
Oh,
banned.
that's worth it just to see that.
There you go.
Yeah, hidden videos there. Tons of stuff. But if you really want to have a good time, you hit the web button, and there's all sorts of stuff over here. But on the top right, this video will literally ruin your life. And then these videos about the mud floods in Tartaria and the civilization, the advanced civilization that was here before us. Hit that. Up comes again playlists of videos that YouTube really won't serve you. And there's so much information in here, it'll blow your mind. And then all sorts of other stuff. But those are the main features there. And again, and then images, like if you need some quick references, like, hey, yeah, we went to the moon in this thing. Look at this thing. Where did they buy this? At Lockheed, or did they go to the arts and crafts store
Staples
to get the materials?
Staples.
Yeah. I think they went to Marshall's.
In all fairness, I've gone 140 miles an hour in a car that people would look at and think there's no way it could do it.
Yeah, but it didn't go to outer space in the vacuum and land on a friggin' spinning ball 238,000 miles away.
It rolled on some wheels. It's a little different.
Right. So tons of resources there to keep yourself busy. I just say every morning, watch the daily video, and then you too will be like us, like, holy crap, Earth is flat. But luckily, it has the friend finder, and you can find other flat earthers near you, and you can send them messages.
And don't email Dave once a month and tell him that the moon is broken. It's not there. It's not supposed to be there. It's because it's a new moon.
Yeah, I do like the full moon month. And anyone that's having any issues, sometimes phones have a little glitches or anything, support at theflatearthpodcast.com. And we'll get back to you within a short period of time.
That's true. I did like wrestling. I was that's the kind of distraction. In fact, I'm going to probably go to WrestleMania in April. So with Alex Stein and others, so it should be fun.
You want to hear some really sad news?
Uh-oh.
The Triple Truth podcast wants Alex Stein on as a guest. We can't get rid of this guy, and it's your fault, Jeran. You're the one that invited him on Raw one week. Okay?
That is a little my fault.
Yeah.
He's doing great work, though. These
He's
guys too funny.
unbelievable.
Too funny.
Unbelievable.
All right, guys, you can say your
All right.
piece, but let's do it again. We'll talk about now. I think it'd be great to have a NASA Mars show. We'll have
Yeah.
Dave back. We'll have you guys back. So final words, and I do appreciate you guys being here. Oh yeah,
Send Jeran your email
Send me in
that's
the chat.
associated with your app store, and
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
put it in
All
the
right?
chat.
Awesome.
there on Zoom.
Appreciate that.
That's great.
But do appreciate you guys being
Yeah.
on and being good sports. And I thought it was going to be a little bit more contentious, but it makes me feel good that you guys said your piece, we said our piece, and then you kind of saw where we were headed, and now you're at least looking into it, and that's all that we can do. I'm just trying to plant the seeds. I don't want you to be convinced today. That would be weird if you walked away here and said, "I'm 100% flat."
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I would like to. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Go, Dave.
I'm just going to say is you just really got to ask yourself, if you want to hold on to the globe, why is it you can't come up with one reason?
I can because it feels good.
There you go. That's a great reason.
I mean,
Send me your Bitcoin address.
Feels great. Yeah.
But first, just to make sure it works, send me some Bitcoin first, okay? And then I'll send twice as much back.
okay. Well, I'll tell you what.
Elon
You
Musk
hold
is
your-
sponsoring it.
You hold your breath and you wait for that. And
Okay.
we'll see which
Yes.
one
Nice.
happens
Nice.
first.
Nice.
All right, say your stuff. Go ahead.
All right. I'm good.
Nope. I mean, Beau, you have anything to say?
Oh.
You could tell people. I know you don't have the podcast anymore, but if you have anything you want to plug, you can do that.
Oh no, nothing to plug. I just if we get back and do this together again, I do kind of want to talk about just a general perception and how you guys would think to overcome that. Because when I was just telling some of my closer friends, hey, I'm gonna read this show. I told them go check out when you reviewed the podcast and stuff, and now we're gonna be on it. And you just get that reaction. You get that initial reaction. Like Dave, like you described when folks started bringing it up to you and you're like, get out of here, you're an idiot. That's exactly the reaction I got from folks.
Did you get anybody who had heard about it or talked, or they all said you're an idiot?
Well, it was just two people, and they're like,
okay.
yeah, you're going to do that because why? You just want to talk to a bunch of idiots for 3 hours? And I was like, no, that's not what I want to discuss. I mean, I've looked at what both of you have put up, and it's thoughtful, it's thoughtful things that you guys have put real effort behind, right or wrong, that deserves some consideration. And just, to call you, that's one of the things I feel bad about, is just our lack of just initial respect we had just for even the View, not before we, I wasn't even aware of you and Dave then. So, and I just think that's wrong. And it's, folks should at least look at things. That's one of the big problems I have. You should at least look at things for you to adopt a position. It's being done to Joe Rogan right now. People are just calling him out, and you don't hear anybody saying, oh, I actually listened to what he said.
Right.
It's just, I heard somebody said that it was misinformation. So now he's out, canceled.
Mhm.
That's what they're trying to do. So, I just feel like that's kind of what's going on here. And it's just not, it's not the right thing to do, and you guys are obviously, thoughtful, considerate people that have a point of view. So.
Good. Well, thank you. Yeah. And
Yep.
it's good to see you guys are actually, because, at first I was thinking that after the podcast, it's like, oh, these guys are just going to come on and repeat the same thing and try and divert to something else. And you at least were able to say, yeah, we still don't believe this 100%, but now we're open to it. And that's all I can ask. That's all I'm trying to do. I used to feel differently. I used to feel like it was my job to convert people, and I don't anymore. I feel like you got to plant the seed, and then people will find what is important for them to find. So if it's in your life's work or your plan to get closer to truth and to make a difference, then I think you'll look into this and come to the right conclusion. And if not, if you're somebody who just is, I'd rather just go with the flow and watch TV and watch the news and live happily with my friends, not thinking I'm an idiot, then you'll choose the other side. That's basically the divide to me. Any final words for you, Gerry?
No, I mean, other than I think I took, what did you just say, Beau? I mean, I took it like you were saying you want to get friendly with him, and after coming on about 3 or 4 times, then you'll call him an idiot. Is that what you were saying?
That's right. We'll wait till then. He already called me an idiot enough. It's all right.
All right. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys, so much.
Appreciate it.
Let me.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right. Let me check real quick. I want to make sure there's any super chats over at Rockfin, then we'll go.
There's a couple on
I
YouTube.
thought it might have hit all those, didn't I?
No, got a nice big one.
Oh, where at? There. Nope, not that one. I'll come back to that one.
From Red Bad. Red Bad?
I'll see that. Red Bad. Commercial sound and video. Thank you very much.
Easiest to follow flat Earth debate discussion that I've seen in a while. Haven't watched one in a while. Glad to see you guys fine tuning how to explain these topics. They aren't always easy for beginners. Great job, everyone. Those two guys are bozos. Oh no, I added that last sentence.
I was gonna say,
and that was $100.
Why did I see it? Okay,
I don't know. It's still there on the screen.
Who's it from?
Yeah, I see it.
From Red Bad.
Yeah, I'm looking at another screen.
I added it. You guys are great, by the way. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much. We have Annihilator Sapphire says, "Get them, boys. Don't go easy on them. Hit them with the indisputable facts and flatten these dudes right out." Maidu Kadu says, "Don't allow Dave to Israel any of my $2." Sorry. Sapphire says, "Perhaps some of NASA money goes to help fund the DUMBSs or the outer defense bases." Haven't heard that mentioned yet. He's talking about the underground bases. And then Dave, is Holocaust scientific? If so, why can you not question it like you're questioning their ball Earth theory? That person
Why are they asking me that?
I don't know. I can't imagine. All right, it's been great, you guys, and we'll do it again. I got your contact, you got mine, so appreciate it, and we'll do it again. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And
Sounds good.
thank you very much to whoever
Have a good
did
night.
the $100 super chat. Much love. We will see you guys tomorrow. Dave, you're gonna be back for Baby Truther Show at noon. Let's do it.
Yeah, I guess so.
We'll see you tomorrow. It's episode number 33.
Oh boy.
Let's get an RV on. All right, guys, been fun. We will see you tomorrow. Till then, you can find me at linktr.ee/Jeranism. All the links are there. The Telegram stuff, notification stuff, the videos, everything, crypto stuff. It's all there. Love everybody a lot. Do your own research, because when you do, you'll never again believe what you've been taught. Till next time, this has been Jeranism. Peace.